Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to City Hall. It's 7 o'clock p.m. on the evening of January 17th. I'd like to officially call this official meeting of the Durham City Council to order in order to faithfully conduct the people's business. Let me firstly start by saying I am not Elaine O'Neill, not even close. Her honor is well and safe. I want the people of the city to know that the mayor is en route to Washington, D.C. to participate in the annual meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, where she will confer with her peers from around the country and discuss best practices and strategies to face the myriad of challenges that are faced by American cities. While they may differ in iteration and degree, many of those challenges are faced by our sister cities all around the country. So at the appropriate time, colleagues, I will be asking for an excused absence for the mayor. Her honor has also asked me to join her in D.C. To split duty. She'll be coming back, and I'll be covering the second half of the meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, so I'll be asking for an excused absence for myself as well at the appropriate time in our agenda. Let me say good evening to my honorable colleagues, to everyone in the chamber here. Welcome to City Hall, to our staff, and to all of you who may be watching at home or wherever you are on television or the internet. Thank you for being with us tonight. As we still are in the aftermath of the King holiday celebration, I'm going to ask that we would all join in a moment of silent meditation. Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to yield to Council Member Freeman and ask that she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
It is our practice to stand and salute the flag. If you'd like to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mayor O'Neill has requested an excused absence. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Holsey-Hyman is a bit delayed this evening. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, colleagues. This evening we have one ceremonial item, a very special ceremonial item. It's the Year of the Trails Proclamation. I'm going to ask Councilmember Caballero will lead us and do the honors for us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this honor. And I think we have somebody, Ms. Morales, maybe from Durham Parks and Rec. Oh, I actually have several folks from Durham Parks and Rec. Thanks. Whereas the city of Durham's natural beauty and access to recreation are critical to its residents' quality of life, health, and economic well-being, and whereas the greenway trails that span across our community are an integral part of the recreational and transportation possibilities of our area, and promote an enjoyment of scenic beauty by our residents and our visitors. And whereas the parks, greenway trails, and natural areas in our community are welcoming to all and provide a common ground for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds to access our rich and diverse natural, cultural, and historic resources. And whereas the city of Durham's natural assets and resources are integral to disaster recovery and resilience to climate change for future generations. And whereas the city of Durham's greenway trails vary from less than a quarter mile in length to the East Coast Greenway that stretches 3,000 miles from Maine to Florida, connecting Durham to 450 cities and towns and 15 states, to the Mountains to Sea Trail that stretches across North Carolina for more than 1,000 miles, from the mountains to the coast, and range from footpaths through state and local parks to greenway trails along abandoned railroad corridors, and from healthy mile trail to short segments of essential walking and biking connections through local neighborhoods. And whereas trails offer quality of life benefits to all as expressions of local community, character, and pride, as outdoor workshops for science education, as tools for economic revitalization, as free resources for healthy recreation, as accessible alternative transportation, and as sites for social and cultural events. And whereas the City of Durham's Park and Recreation Department has many programs that impact trails, such as Adopt a Park, Trail Full Moon Hikes, Rides, and History Hikes. And whereas the North Carolina General Assembly designated 2023 as the year of the trail in North Carolina to promote and celebrate the state's extensive network of trails that showcase our state's beauty, vibrancy, and culture. And whereas North Carolina is known as the Great Trails State. Now, therefore, I, Elaine M. O'Neill, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim 2023 as the year of the trail in Durham, and hereby commend its observance to our citizens. Witness my hand in the corporate seal of the City of Durham, North Carolina, this 17th day of January, 2023.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Ms. Page. I'm Gina Murray with the Parks and Recreation Department, and we are grateful that we can kick off the 2023 Year of the Trail with this proclamation, and hope that you will join us on some of the many Year of the Trail activities on Durham's trails. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Photo op, photo op. Thank you so much for a great proclamation. And while my colleague returns to her seat, let me take this opportunity on behalf of the mayor and the entire city to thank our Parks and Recreation Department for the incredible job they do, and express how grateful we are in Durham for those oasis moments created by our trails and our parks. And I hope that every resident and citizen will take advantage of this wonderful resource we have here in our city. Thank you, Councilmember Caballero. Colleagues, at this time, I will yield for any announcements by members of the council. I'll look to my left first. Councilmember Johnson, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening to everyone. I would like to request a couple of excused absences for March, a little bit in advance, but the meeting on Monday, March 6th, and the work session on Thursday, March 9th, I will be out of the country and unavailable.
Thank you, Councilmember. Safe travels. Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and colleagues. Just wanted to say I'm really excited that we are getting into budget season, and
No, be serious.
I'm really, really excited. And I am, really hopeful that I can selfishly get these through, not really selfishly, but through on behalf of the community. Just wanted to project some of the things that I'm looking forward to putting out there. Black men are having some serious issues in this city, black men and boys, and I hope that we could really address that seriously. I'll be proposing a task force to really analyze the study, the status of black men. We are at the highest performance level criminally and at the lowest performance level academically. That is a problem. And I do think if we can fix that, we can fix a lot of other issues. I'll be asking for support to reestablish the Durham Symphony and Orchestra as an official vital asset of the city of Durham. I'll be proposing for re-imaging of the Welcome to Durham signs that are dilapidated now when you drive through the city. I'll be asking for a few other things that I'm really excited about. So just wanted to put those out and hope that we can make it happen. I'm talking about this now because we all have a lot of requests that are going to be coming forth, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. So I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the requests, and I hope that the community will really engage in this process and support the direction this council is trying to go as we're representing you. So, and happy MLK weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll look to my right. Councilmember Caballero.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I was not here at the first set of meetings in January, so I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year, and also want to thank all the residents and organizations who gathered over the MLK holiday. I was able to attend several events Book Harvest had a very successful event yesterday. Feed Durham also had a service event for residents, and it's always just such a pleasure to see residents out serving their community and being good neighbors to one another. This Saturday, I was also able to visit the Prescription for Repairs program that kicked off. It was the first facilitators training, and again, at least 30 residents who were there at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning volunteering their time, and that's what makes the city incredible, is because there are so many dedicated neighbors working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Freeman, good evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Caballero, for reminding me. I do want to let the public know that we are collecting books for Book Harvest. We do have a box set up in the council office, just trying to make sure that we are being a good partner with such a good resource in our community, and love those baby books, so please bring them in. And then secondly, I want to thank folks who came out to support the Friends of Gear Street Gear Street Cemetery, and cleaning up the cemetery this weekend as well. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, colleagues. Let me finally for our announcements for the council on behalf of the mayor, just thank all in the city who participated in MLK events. The mayor attended the prayer breakfast on Monday morning. She also spent Shabbat with the people of Judea Reform Synagogue on Friday evening. I had the opportunity to spend Saturday with the people of Bethel Synagogue as well, and had a wonderful time with them to kick off their MLK celebration. So we want to thank them and all of our residents and citizens who came together to celebrate that iconic life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we continue to wish you a happy holiday. I also want to say that last week we were rocked as a city when we learned that there was an officer-involved shooting. We are extremely grateful in that shooting that no lives were lost. While it's an ongoing investigation, we can't speak to any specifics about it. We understand that it's a very dangerous job that our police officers and our firefighters and our first responders have, but we are grateful that no life was lost, either by one of our officers or the person involved in the incident. And we continue to send our prayers and best wishes out to all involved in that matter. So we want to say that. And thank you all for being here. And now we'll get to the business at hand. I'm going to now yield to our city manager for any priority items that she may have. Good evening, Madam Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and members of the Durham City Council. I do have one item for you this evening. It is agenda item number 8. It is the Affordable Housing Deep Dive presentation on Durham Homeless Continuum of Care. Pursuant to City Council's request, additional information has been provided under priority items by the city manager, city attorney, and city clerk. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Your priority item is noted. At this time now, I'll yield to our city attorney for any priority items she may have. Good evening, Councilor.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. It's good to see you. Good to see you, members of council. The city attorney's office has no priority items tonight.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. At this time, I'll yield to the clerk for any priority items she may have. Good evening, Madam Clerk.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. The city clerk's office also has no priority items.
Thank you all. Colleagues, at this time, I'm going to ask for action on the excused absences. We'll note that Councilmember Johnson has also asked for absences for our March 6th. Was it March 6th? I'm sorry. And March, okay. I don't know why I wrote down the 7th. For those two meetings, as she noted, we'll do these in turn. We'll start with Her Honor, the mayor first. I'll entertain a motion to grant the mayor an excused absence for this evening.
So move.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Williams, and I'll take a second from Councilmember Freeman. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now do our friend, Councilmember Johnson.
Sorry, the 6th and the 9th.
6th and the 9th.
Thank you.
Okay. Let the record reflect that we are entertaining a motion to grant our colleague, Councilmember Johnson, excuses for our meeting on March 6th, regular council meeting March 6th, and our work session on March 9th. I'll entertain that motion.
So move.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Williams and a second from, was it Councilmember Caballero? Councilmember Caballero. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Finally, I'll ask colleagues for the courtesy of granting me an excused absence for this coming Thursday's work session.
So move.
Second.
Thank you so much. I heard Councilmember Williams offer the motion, Councilmember Johnson offer the second. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
And lastly, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for that. At this time now, we'll turn to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda is composed of items that the council has already had opportunity to treat and to consider in a previous work session, and I'll read them into the agenda. However, any one of these items can be pulled by a member of the council or a member of the public for further treatment. We will then pass the items that have not been pulled and then return at the end of the meeting or at the discretion of the chair at some point during the meeting to deal with that item. So at this time now, for the record, I'll read the consent agenda. A consent agenda, item number 1, resolution in support of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, City's appeal for the United Nations UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW. Item number 2, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA project, Family Child Care Homes Education Initiative. Item number 3, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, project, Reentry Housing Support. Item number 4, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, project, Transitional and Independent Housing. Item number 5, contract amendment with Context Systems, Inc., to provide audio-visual enterprise support for broadcasting and public interaction of city council meetings. Item number 6, contract agreement for services with Made in Durham. Item number 7, First Amendment to interlocal agreement between the City of Durham, Orange County, and Durham County regarding cost sharing for transit plan governance study. Under general business agenda, public hearings, item number 10, zoning map change 1311 North Carolina Highway 54 West. Item number 11, consolidated annexation, Copper Run South.
Recording stopped.
I didn't do that.
Recording in progress.
Item number 12, consolidated annexation, Crescent Towns. Item number 13, consolidated annexation, Kemp Road Residential. That ends the reading of the agenda. I heard no item being pulled, so at this time I will entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Freeman and a second from Councilmember Johnson. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. Thank you, colleagues. The consent agenda is passed. At this time, now we'll turn to our general business agenda, our public hearings, and we will begin with item number. If you're hearing a demonstration in the chamber, I'm assuming that's for the adoption of the resolution for the ban on nuclear weapons. Treaty, thank you for your work on that, and congratulations. Thank you. At this time now, we will engage in our public hearings. Item number 10, zoning map change 1311 North Carolina Highway 54 West, and we will hear from the staff. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and honorable council members. I am Brooke Roper with the Planning Department, and I'm happy to be here with you tonight. Before I begin, staff would like to state for the record that all Planning Department hearing items have been advertised and noticed in accordance with state and local law, and affidavits of all notices are on file in the Planning Department. A request for a zoning map change has been received from Patrick Biker for one parcel of land totaling 1.5 acres and located at 1311 North Carolina Highway 54. The current zoning is commercial neighborhood with a development plan. The applicant proposes to change this designation to commercial general with a text-only development plan, prohibiting passenger terminals, utility centers.
Roper, would you suspend for a minute, please? Staff, would you secure the doors, please?
Of course.
There's one more. I don't think that's staff. Thank you, but I apologize, Ms. Rupert.
Of course, thank you. The applicant proposes to change this designation to commercial general with a text-only development plan prohibiting passenger terminals, utility centers, indoor recreation, conference center, electronic gaming, firing ranges indoor, nightclub or bar, hotel, motel, and extended stay, bed and breakfast, commercial parking, payday lenders, self-service storage, vehicle sales, and manufactured home sales. The applicant is proposing to rezone the properties to facilitate future redevelopment of the property. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 11-0 at the November 15th, 2022 meeting. The properties are currently designated commercial on the future land use map. The proposed commercial general with the text-only development plan zoning is consistent with the designated future land use. As a reminder, 2 motions are required for this application. The first motion is to approve the zoning ordinance. The second motion is to approve the consistency statement. Thank you, and the applicant and staff are available for any questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to declare this public hearing open, but before we turn to the gallery, I'm going to ask if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues on the dais. All right, with that, Mr. Biker, good evening. You're the applicant. How much time do you anticipate needing for your presentation?
2.5 minutes.
Put 3 minutes on the clock, please.
Could I have my PowerPoint up, please, Ms. Roper? Oh, it is. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. My name is Patrick Biker with Morningstar Law Group. I live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm here tonight representing Moran Capital out of Charlotte. William Anderson, the partner at Moran who's working on this project with me, is here tonight as well. This agenda item pertains to 1311 North Carolina Highway 54, where there is a vacant 11,000 square foot drugstore on 1.5 acres that Moran Capital would like to redevelop. This site was the subject of a development plan that was approved over 20 years ago, and that development plan mandated a drugstore inside an 11,000 square foot building. While I fear I may be making the case that I have worn out my welcome at City Hall, I am here before the City Council tonight to ask for permission to tear down a building that I remember working on to get built over 20 years ago. Perhaps some of the City Council members remember the Eckards and then later a Rite Aid that was at this high traffic corner. Following Rite Aid's closure, this site has been vacant for the past several years. I recognize you all have a long agenda tonight, so I'll just briefly want to note that this type of redevelopment seems to me to exemplify the perfect application for the text-only development plan. The right-in, right-out access points for this site are already locked in, and in that regard, please keep in mind that this corner has almost 35,000 cars per day going past it, 16,500 on Highway 54 and 18,000 on 751. In addition, the Watershed Protection Ordinance protects our environment by limiting impervious surfaces to 70%. And of course, this redevelopment will bring the site up to UDO standards in regards to the landscaping. I also want to add that there are already sidewalks on both sides of the street, on both street frontages at this corner. And as you can see from our text-only development plan, as was shared in the staff report, we've eliminated several undesirable uses at this location. All we're asking for is for this site to be allowed to have the commercial uses that are typical for this part of Durham. To wrap up, William and his team at Moran Capital would like to redevelop this site, put it back into productive use, rather than have it sit empty. And since we received a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, we respectfully ask for your approval as well. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Biker. I don't think I received any cards for speakers for this item. None physically in my hand, and I don't see anyone in the queue virtually to speak on this. However, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the gallery, in the chamber, who wishes to speak on this item? This is a public hearing. Colleagues, do you have any questions for the applicant? All right, with that, the matter, I'm going to officially declare this public hearing closed, and the matter is back before the council. This item requires 2 motions. The first motion is to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of the commercial neighborhood with a development plan, C&D, Falls Jordan District, BFJB, and establishing the same as commercial general with a text-only development plan, CGD, prohibiting passenger terminals, utility centers, indoor recreation, conference center, electronic gaming, firing range, indoor, nightclub or bar, hotel, motel, and extended stay, bed and breakfast, commercial parking, payday lenders, self-service storage, vehicle sales, and manufactured home sales, Falls Jordan District, BFJB. I'm entertaining a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Johnson and a second from Councilmember Caballero. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 5-0.
All right, motion number 2 is to adopt a consistency statement as required by NCGS 160D-605.
So moved.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Johnson and the second from Councilmember Caballero. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Staff, good evening again.
Good evening. Honorable council members, good evening. Brooke Roper with the Planning Department. A request for a utility extension agreement, voluntary annexation, and initial zoning map change has been received from David Bergmark of McAdams for 52 parcels of land totaling 34.09 acres and located between Highway 70 and Angier Avenue at the intersection of Highway 70 and Copperleaf Parkway. This annexation petition is for a contiguous expansion of the primary corporate limits. This annexation would facilitate the construction of up to 127 townhouse and 6 single-family dwelling units. Several parcels are inconsistent with the current FLUM. If approved, staff requests that the inconsistent FLUM parcels have their FLUM designation changed to low-medium density residential. As part of this annexation petition, the applicant is not seeking a change in the underlying zoning district. A direct translational zoning is one in which the existing county zoning is translated to the identical city zoning district upon the annexation of the property into city limits. A translational zoning does not include a development plan, and any future development may proceed according to what the zoning would allow. While the current use of the property is primarily vacant, save for one single-family home in an old commercial structure, future development under the existing zoning of office and institutional, residential suburban multifamily, residential suburban 20, and commercial general allows single-family development, townhouse and multifamily development, office and commercial uses by right under each specific zoning district. As a reminder, 3 motions are required for this application. The first is to adopt an ordinance annexing the property into a utility extension agreement. The second is to approve the zoning ordinance, and the third is to approve the consistency statement. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to declare this public hearing open, but before we go to the gallery, I'm going to see if any of my honorable colleagues have any questions or comments for staff. All right, seeing none, I'll turn now to the applicant. Mr. Ghosh, I believe you're representing the applicant. Good evening. How much time do you anticipate needing for your presentation?
About a minute.
About a minute?
Yeah.
Put 2 minutes on the clock, please.
So, good evening, everyone. This request is for an annexation. There's no change to the zoning. I think it was mentioned that there is a site plan in review that's showing a residential development on these parcels. That residential development is allowed by right under the current zoning, which is why we're not requesting any zoning change. The annexation is simply to facilitate connection to public utilities. Happy to answer any questions you have. I'm here available, as well as David Bergmark from McAdams. Happy to answer any questions you may have about this annexation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have several people, about 3 people that signed up to speak on this item. I have 1 proponent, I believe in 2 opponents. The first card I have is for Luis Parra. Mr. Parra, good evening. Sir, if you would approach the podium, state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on this item. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Luis Parra, and I live in 2122 Hinesley Road, which is on the zoning or the map that here. So my question is that since my house is on well, and with all the pavement and all the houses they're going to put in, the watershed is we're going to have some problems with the well. So my question is, am I going to be allowed to connect to the public utilities on the development?
Mr. Parra, the time is yours, so I'm going to ask that you just go ahead and you can ask whatever you, stop the clock.
Okay.
And then if staff.
Okay, so, and then the other question is, this is on behalf of my neighbor. He's got a city water that has been put in like 35 years ago. So the proposed plan is they're going to eliminate part of Hinesley Road, and which is connected to, I believe it was, I can remember the name of the street, but it's been left out to grow. So the woods it's covered by woods and debris and everything. So where the line goes, where the water line goes, is from Angel Avenue all the way to Hinesley Road. So the proposed map is going to cut Hinesley Road, and he's going to be without water, basically. But he has an easement that has been, like I say, 35 years ago. So that's my question. Thank you very much, and we just, waiting to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parra. And your question's been captured.
I hope I made sense.
You did. You made perfect sense. Thank you, sir. I have 2, the record reflect that Council Member Hyman is present. Good evening, Council Member. We have 2 opponents. The first card I have, I believe it's Paul Williams, and then Donna Stainback. Good evening. Pam, that's a Pam. I know you. I'm sorry. Good evening. If you would state your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes to address us. I'm sorry.
No problem. Understand. It's my handwriting. My name's Pam Williams. I live at 2130 Adventure Trail, Durham, North Carolina. And I guess I may not understand the process on this one. There was no development plan provided, only a boundary plan. This consolidation is at the head of Lick Creek, which is Triassic soil conditions, mostly forest, and next to the existing community on Andrew Avenue. Since there is no development plan provided, I have to assume that the developer will follow minimum ordinance requirements. And if that is the case, then we would like to request some proffers. But, or can I? I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and request the proffers that we have lined up, and then y'all can let me know how this one works, because it seems different than the others. The proffers should include amendments for the amendments that are being updated, TC 220004 and the amendment TC 220005. Those amendments that are being updated in the ordinance right now, they follow some of these sediment basins with temporary and permanent design for 100-year flood, stream buffers, perennial streams, 150-foot buffer for intermittent stream, 100-foot buffer, double row silk fence, use of flocculants, land disturbance no more than 20 acres per phase, tree preservation distributed throughout the property, and not allow double count of buffers to facilitate design that promotes the retention of natural topography, soil health, and integrity of the existing site. 30-foot border buffer with a 06 opacity along the right-of-way, a 30-foot natural boundary along the existing properties with a 08 opacity, and fencing, if used, be placed on the interior of the boundary or border. And also that the Ronese group, the department, can use the stop order enforcement that's in the proposed text amendment. And we are requesting that the developer respect the existing character of the community as stated in Comprehensive Plan H.03 and GI 21. But most of these proffers are in those text amendments. Thank you.
Mr. Williams, thank you so much, and thank you for being with us. Next, Donna Steinbach. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Those are all the cards I have. I know Mr. Bergmark, is that a resource? Okay. Is he in chamber? Or okay. All right. Mr. Bergmark, did you wish to speak? Or all right. Mr. Ghosh, that exhausts the questions that I had. I'll go to if anybody else wants to, but did you want to address any? All right.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for the opportunity. So just to respond back to a couple things that were heard, I was just chatting with Mr. Para, who asked the question earlier whether he would be able to connect to the city water and sewer. And my understanding of that, which I explained to him, is that he could if he wanted to annex into the city, which is exactly the process we're going through right now. I'm happy to assist him with that if that's the route he wants to go. Also heard some, this is an annexation with a direct translational rezoning. There is no development plan, but there was some mention about proffers. One thing that is available here that isn't available in a lot of rezonings is that there is a site plan that's in review. And so there's some information on the site plan that I'm happy to share with you all. So in this development, the open space requirement would be 18%, and the site plan is showing 32% open space. The site plan is at 32% impervious, which is quite low. And the required tree coverage for this area is 20%. The site plan is showing 21.5% tree coverage, all through tree preservation. So, the site plan does more than meet the minimum requirements in the UDO, and I just wanted to let folks know that. It is a residential development. I would not describe this area in any way as rural in nature. I mean, it's, between 70 and Anger. I don't know that that's very rural. But it certainly is an area that's not yet in the city, which is why we're requesting annexation. But I mean, I think the character of the development, the residential development that we're talking about here fits with the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else in chamber who wishes to speak on this item? This is a public hearing. Mr. Bergmark, if you'll approach, please, and state your name. And was that Mr. Bergmark? I'm sorry. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. If you'll state your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes. And then after you're finished, if I could ask you to go and fill out a card for the clerk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is David Sears. I live at 4306 Andrew Avenue, right across the street from where the properties are being requested for annexation. I just had a couple questions. First question, and it may have been addressed already when she was explaining what all was happening. There's a couple properties on Andrew Avenue in between, I guess on the 70 side of it, that are currently not in the city limits. I didn't know if they're going to be kind of jigsaw. This new parcel is going to jigsaw around them. So will they automatically be grafted into the city limits, or will my neighbors across the street have to request to join into the city limits or not? Other question I had, the roadway system out there is pretty congested right now, especially during peak hours. And I didn't know if the future NCDOT STIP U5720 for US 70 improvements along US 70 in this corridor has been considered. The current hearing maps on NCDOT's website show there's businesses along US 70. The US 70 improvements would include widen along US 70, and to maintain access to these businesses would require service roads, probably would be accessed through Andrew Avenue, even though they're not shown on the current hearing map. I didn't know if there was any insight into that. Third question would be if a traffic impact analysis will be required for the development of this property. And that concludes my questions.
Thank you so much.
You said you need me to fill out a card?
Yes, if you don't mind, just seeing the clerk.
Yeah.
For a record. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else in the chamber who wishes to speak on this item? Good evening. If you would approach the podium and state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes as well. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, council members. My name is Samantha Kropp. For the record, I live at 5228 Olive Road in Raleigh. I'm here speaking on behalf of Sound Rivers in my role as the Neuse River Keeper. I actually originally intended to just join to speak about the Kemp Road topic, which I am signed up to speak on. But I just wanted to say a few things about this particular proposal. I think, as most of you know, I've looped in a lot of you onto the work that I've been doing in the Lick Creek watershed. I work on the whole Neuse River from the headwaters down to the Pamlico Sound, but I do focus a significant amount of my time on Lick Creek because of the significant sediment pollution issues that I've been documenting there. And I will say that I have recorded the highest levels of turbidity out of any place in the watershed in Lick Creek, and it's been consistent and in many different places. And so I just wanted to flag this particular development because it is at the headwaters. I know that that was mentioned earlier, but that's something that is actually really important for us to notice. I know that the Department of Environmental Quality right now has only recently started taking an awareness of the issues and the pollution in Lick Creek, and they're actually starting to do their own water sampling in the locations that I have been sampling with Sound Rivers. And so, you know, I know that you all are very familiar with the Triassic Basin situation. I won't bore you with the details of that, but all this to say is that this is a very unique part of the Neuse watershed. It has very specific needs. It's very sensitive. And when we talk about developments in the headwaters, I think we just need to be very, very thoughtful about what that looks like. And I do so appreciate all the work that you all are doing on the amendments that were mentioned earlier, the sediment erosion control and the mass grading amendments. I'm really thankful for that. And I guess what I would ask for is just taking the thoughtfulness that's going into those amendments and making sure that they're reflected in all of the developments along the creek, especially at the headwaters where everything goes, everything starts and flows downstream. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you for being with us. This is a public hearing. Anyone else in the chamber wish to speak on this item? This is a public hearing. All right, did the applicant want to respond to anything? Yay or nay? Okay.
Yes, just briefly to touch again, I think it was Mr. Sears, I think, asked if other property would be annexed. And just to answer the question, no, annexation is a voluntary process. The city or local government does not have the ability to annex properties involuntarily, nor do we as the applicant. So the annexation will not impact the jurisdiction of adjacent properties. I think he also asked whether TIA was required for this, and to my knowledge, no TIA was required for this development. And then, you know, again, just to touch on some of the highlights from the site plan, 32% impervious, which is quite low, 32% open space, which is quite high.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Colleagues, any questions or comments from the dais? Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I did want to come back to Mr. Pattern. If you could state your address, I think you have to come to the mic, but if you could just state your address clearly, I didn't catch it.
Again, this is Luis Parra, and I live on 2122 Hinesley Road in Durham, North Carolina, 27703.
And you mentioned that you were on well water.
Yes.
And you're currently concerned that this annexation, or whether or not you'd be able to be included in this annexation, you understood that it would be by your pretty much you asking to be annexed, that you would be
Yes.
included, okay? And you're good with that? You have enough information? Okay, thank you. And then
Thank you.
thank you. Ms. Williams, if you could just repeat I was trying to type it as fast as I could. The amendment numbers that you mentioned specifically with T, C, Z, and I want to say it's 4 zeros. I just want to make sure I catch it because I want to ask for it.
They were the UDO amendments, which are TC 22, 4 zeros and a 4, and TC 4 zeros, 22, 4 zeros and a 5.
Got you, thank you.
And they are the ones that have been presented at the joint meeting.
Got you. Thank you, I appreciate it. And then to Mr. Ghosh, I just wanted to make sure that those amendments that Ms. Williams brought up were addressed. If your client was willing to proffer those amendment updates that are in the works and would be ready to accept those amendments on the site.
So we are just requesting annexation. In my understanding, I can check with staff, we don't really have an ability to proffer anything anyway with the annexation. There's no attached rezoning development plan for which commitments could be attached.
And just specifically around the way that you're developing or that you're planning to develop as you move forward, and I guess I should be asking staff, is there a way to make sure that they're tracking back to the same amendment with that site plan that they are moving forward?
So those amendments have not been formally adopted yet. They are listed on our Growth Management Engagement Initiative site for folks to learn more about them and provide input, but they're in draft form right now.
Okay, and so I want to make sure that your client is aware of these amendments and that this will be something that our staff will be looking for as you do move forward.
So my understanding is the site plan was in before those amendments have been adopted. Those amendments would not apply to the site plan. Site plan is in review right now.
Okay. So what you're saying is essentially they would not be amenable to those amendments as they move forward, and that's all I needed. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Councilmember. Ms. Roper, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Or, okay, all right. Thank you, Councilmember. Anyway, Councilmember Caballero.
Yeah, I would like to address the resident who lives near Angier and Highway 70. I apologize, I did not catch your name. I just wanted to let you know that there is a public engagement study around Highway 70. I don't know if you're aware of that. There will be another round of public engagement in March/April, and that's for all residents here. So hopefully you will participate in that. I encourage you to do so. We really need resident voice around that NCDOT project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Colleagues, anyone else? All right, with that, I'm going to officially declare this public hearing closed and the matter is back before the council. Before we entertain motions, I'll ask my colleagues once again any questions or comments for staff before we entertain motions. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I just wanted to find out from staff what it would look like to kind of send this back. Just acknowledging that I do want to make sure that because this is at the headways of Lick Creek, specifically this one case, that we do make sure that this does align, that it does align with the way we're moving forward and trying to address the sensitive areas that are specifically with high turbidity, knowing that the sedimentary is, I mean, we can address it with the flocculants, and if we're not in position to move forward with the kind of guidelines that would be in place, I would like to hold this off, and I would just like to get some feedback.
Councilmember, before I let staff, are you asking for us to consider whether or not we're going to, what is it that you want the staff to speak to our decision as to whether or not we're going to?
I want to know what the process would look like. So if this were to be held off, if we were to request additional time to review.
It's within our purview as a council. The staff can't speak to that for us. It's within our purview as a council to remand it back or send it back to staff. Or you can just vote no against it, and the will of the council can be expressed through our vote. But I mean, I'll entertain any other comments from the council, but that's within our purview. If you want to appeal to us to send it back, then we'll certainly consider that, but I don't.
I really wanted to, like, I guess, how do you structure that? Like, even what would the motion be to?
You can ask us, and in
Just
our
send it
regular
back.
course, we'll discuss it like we do all the time, and if we cross a threshold amongst our colleagues to send it back, Chair will obviously honor that. Are you asking to?
I mean, I don't know what that would look like, so
Are you asking for us to consider it?
I am asking us to consider it.
All right, colleagues, does anyone want to weigh in? And of course, you reserve the right to just vote no.
Are we asking the applicant to commit to amendments that haven't formally been adopted?
No, we're checking to make sure that we have, pretty much we want to make sure that we're passing those amendments. But in this interim, where we have not passed those amendments, we need to make sure that this property, like I did not get to visit the site. I actually went towards Durham Tech thinking that was where it was, so I didn't get to go there. But there has to be some process we put in place in the interim for properties that are coming forward, especially with an annexation and it's just a site plan. There's no development plan. And not knowing any more than, I mean, I don't know if the 32%, open space is the same as the, like where it's exactly. There's just too many open areas, and this area is very sensitive. That's what I'm noting.
Councilmember, I think if I might, Councilmember Williams, your concerns are duly noted and well stated. As for a process in the interim, we can't do things ex post facto, and we can't do things in anticipation of amendments that haven't been passed yet. The process, as it stands now, is voted up or down. Is the process as it stands now. For us they may pass, they may not pass, but for us to posture ourselves in anticipation of what may happen, and then try and inform actions that we're legally bound to take right now is, at least in my assessment, a slippery slope. But again, you reserve the right to vote it down, vote against it if you choose to. With that, colleagues, I'm going to entertain motion number 1 to adopt an ordinance annexing Copper Run South into the city of Durham effective March 31st, 2023, and to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with D.R. Horton, Inc.
So moved.
Second, with the anticipation of.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Johnson and a second from Councilmember Freeman. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Thank you. Would you close the vote and report out?
The motion passes 5-1 with Councilmember Freeman voting no.
Thank you. Motion number 2 to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of the office and institutional OI, residential suburban, multifamily RSM, residential suburban 20, RS20, commercial general CG, county jurisdiction, and establishing the same as office and institutional OI, residential suburban, multifamily RSM, residential suburban 20, RS20, commercial general CG, city jurisdiction.
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Johnson, a second from Councilmember Caballero. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 5-1 with Councilmember Freeman voting no.
Finally, motion number 3 to adopt a consistency statement as required by NCGS 160D-605.
Move.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Williams and a second from Councilmember Johnson. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. That dispenses with item number 11. Thank you, all the residents and citizens who participated in this public hearing. We'll now move to item number 12, Consolidated Annexation, Crescent Towns, and we will now hear the report from the staff.
Thank you. Honorable council members, good evening. Brooke Roper, Planning Department.
A request for a utility extension agreement, voluntary annexation, and initial zoning has been received from Amanda Hoyle of Tri-Point Homes for 8 parcels of land totaling 8.53 acres and located at 5824, 5822, 5820, 5818, 5812, 5804, and 5716 Crescent Drive. This annexation petition is for a contiguous expansion of the primary corporate limits. The applicant is proposing to annex the properties to connect to city services and facilitate the construction of 103 townhouse units. After noticing an error, staff asked the applicant to update the number of units to be consistent across application materials. To maintain consistency, the applicant would need to update the maximum number of units from 103 to 102 on the development plan. The current zoning is residential suburban 20 for the initial city zoning of this site if annexation is approved. The applicant proposes to change this designation to residential compact with a development plan to allow for the construction of up to 103 townhouse units. This request received a recommendation of denial from the Planning Commission on October 11th, 2022 by a vote of 5-5. This case was continued from the December 5th, 2022 City Council meeting at the applicant's request. The properties are currently designated Design District on the future land use map. The proposed residential compact district zoning is consistent with the designated future land use. If the proposed zoning is approved, there will be no change in the future land use map designation of Design District. As a reminder, 3 motions are required for this application. The first is to adopt an ordinance annexing the property and entering into a utility extension agreement. The second is to approve the zoning ordinance, and the third is to approve the consistency statement. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to declare this public hearing open, but before we go to the gallery, I'm going to yield to my colleagues on the dais for any questions or comments they may have. All right, seeing none, I'll invite the applicant, Mr. Ghosh, again to come and present. How much time do you anticipate needing, sir?
7 minutes.
Let's put 7 minutes on the clock, please.
And good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of the City Council. I'm Neil Ghosh, attorney at the Morningstar Law Group, 700 West Main Street in Durham. I'm representing Tri-Point Homes, which is the applicant for this project. Also with me tonight are Amanda Hoyle, who I think came in recently, with Tri-Point Homes, and Tim Somerville at Stewart. Let me first start by thanking Ms. Roper for her presentation. As she described, we are seeking to rezone about 8.5 acres from its current RS20 designation to the RC, or Residential Compact Zoning District, with a development plan. The property in question is within the Lee Village Compact Neighborhood tier. The assemblage is kind of long and narrow, so the development opportunities are somewhat limited. I think the site depth is only at 360 feet wide at its widest point, so that presents a development challenge. Additionally, there are segments of 2 different collector roads shown on the adopted collector street plan, which cut through the assemblage, so that is yet another development challenge. As far as zoning commitments, we are committing to handling the 100-year storm, and we also have 2 monetary proffers, one for affordable housing and one for DPS. The commitment about the number of units is a little unusual in the way it's written. I think Ms. Roper touched on this earlier. I'll just say, we had some emails. When I say we, I should say, I think I was emailing with Alexander and Andy Lester, about how this commitment ought to be written. So one thing we have the benefit of here is that there is a site plan in review. We believe the site plan will be approved with either 102 or 103 units. Based on the feedback that we got from the planning department earlier this evening, I think we're going to rewrite that condition just so that it says the maximum number of units is 110, with the understanding that the UDO allows 20% downward deviation from that. So it'll be 102 or 103 units based on where our site plan is right now. I know that's confusing, but I think the way that it is written right now is not compliant with the UDO, so we need to change that. Anyway, because of the site constraints and the fact that the site essentially is surrounded by multifamily projects already, we felt townhomes made sense here. And you can see in the development plan that the idea here is to have 3 rows of townhomes with a road running north-south down the assemblage through the property, and an alley also running now north-south through the property. In a sense, it's unfortunate that the collector roads, at least the northern one, is where it is because it creates a weird segment of property sandwiched between it and existing Wendell Road. But that is the hand we are dealt. I recognize that those collector roads, at least on our property, only are short segments for this project, but those will be very nice roads when completed all the way through. They will have, my understanding is, multi-use paths and street trees on both sides all the way down. So they'll be really nice to walk on and also to drive down once they get built out. Now, I did want to touch on the Planning Commission vote. It was an unusual vote. Technically, the project was recommended for denial by a 5-5 vote. I think it is fair to say that at least some of those who voted no did so in part due to factors that are outside of our control. Projects around the area have been approved for multifamily development, and during the Planning Commission hearing, folks wondered why we were not able to do multifamily instead of townhomes. We reminded them that the parcel is long and narrow. The site also has 2 collector roads. A surface park multifamily development would be very challenging to design with these factors, especially because of spacing issues for access points. Chair Amendolia's comments basically amount to, the project, this assemblage could be developed better if we controlled the land west of us. I mean, we don't, though. We control the acreage, this unusual, oddly shaped acreage. That's what we control. So we're not able to do that. Commissioner Cease said that the project screams for more housing type. This is 8.5 acres, and everything around us has been approved for or is being considered for multifamily. This project is the housing diversity in this area. Everything else is multifamily. We also said, he also said that we should not have to follow the collector street plan because it is outdated and was based in part on light rail. While that's true, we do not have the option to ignore the adopted collector street plan. I believe one of the commissioners commented upon clear cutting and open space. This is in a compact neighborhood tier. There is no tree coverage requirement. This is kind of the trade-off for getting a denser, more compact development pattern. And for this assemblage specifically, there are no environmentally sensitive features on this property. Frankly, I was surprised by the 5-5 vote because this is an ideal piece of land for a compact residential development. I think the staff report materials reflect the same conclusion, and hopefully so will you. Thank you for your time, and our team is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Madam Clerk, I don't see any cards from any people that signed up to speak in advance. I don't see anyone in queue on the virtual platform as well. You concur? All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in chamber who wishes to speak on this item? This is a public hearing. All right, with that, I'll turn to my colleagues. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Councilmember Caballero.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I may have missed it. Mr. Ghosh, what were the affordable housing and DPS proffers?
50,000 and 25,000 respectively.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else? Councilmember Hyman, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Ghosh. So in reading some of the comments from the Planning Commission, one of the things they talked about was the excess traffic. Was there a traffic study done with this?
There was no traffic study done for this development. It's at 102, 103 townhomes. One was not required.
Okay. And I might have missed this, but tree preservation, there was some concerns about.
Yeah, so that was mentioned by the Planning Commission, but there is no tree save requirement in the UDO for compact neighborhood, or for the RC district in the compact neighborhood tier. That having been said, the site plan does show trees that are being saved. It's not something that's been calculated because there is no tree save required in this district. And the other thing to be aware of is there will be trees on the property. It's just, that's due to landscaping and things like that. There will be street trees, that type of thing. Those are all required under the UDO. They're not typically part of your tree coverage calculation. Again, There also is no tree coverage calculation because this is a RC development and there is no requirement for tree coverage.
Okay. And you did say for affordable housing, the profit was 50,000?
That's right.
All right, yeah, because there was some concerns from the planning commission about that too, so I was just wondering.
And I'm sorry, was there a question that you?
No question, just stating that there were some concerns about the amount of the profit from the planning commission.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Colleagues, anyone else? All right, with that, I'm going to declare this public hearing closed. The matter is back before the council. Again, before calling for any motions, I'll ask my colleagues one last time if any questions or comments. The matter is back before us. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion, the first of three motions, to adopt an ordinance annexing Crescent towns into the city of Durham, effective March 31st, 2023, and to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with Tri-Point Homes Holdings, Inc.
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Williams and a second from Councilmember Johnson. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 5-1 with Councilmember Freeman voting no.
All right, motion number 2, to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of the residential suburban 20, RS 20, Major Transportation Corridor, MTC, Falls Jordan District B, FJB, county jurisdiction, and establishing the same as residential compact with a development plan, RCD, Major Transportation Corridor, MTC, Falls Jordan District B, FJB, city jurisdiction.
So moved.
Second.
Heard a motion from Councilmember Williams and a second from Councilmember Johnson. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Would you please close the vote and report out?
The motion passes 5-1 with Councilmember Freeman voting no.
And finally, motion number 3, to adopt a consistency statement as required by NCGS 160D-605.
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilmember Williams and a second from Councilmember Johnson. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? Please close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. That concludes this matter. Item number 12. We'll move now to item number 13, Consolidated Annexation, Kemp Road Residential, and we'll hear from the staff.
Thank you. Honorable council members, good evening. Brooke Roper, Planning Department. A request for a utility extension agreement, voluntary annexation, and initial zoning map change has been received from Laura Holloman of McAdams Company for 4 parcels of land totaling 279.68 acres and located at 4901 Kemp Road, 4902 Kemp Road, 5501 Kemp Road, and 1862 Southview Road. This annexation petition is non-contiguous to the primary corporate limits. The current zoning is residential rural. If annexation is approved, the applicant proposes to establish the city zoning as planned development residential 3.155 and rural residential with a text-only development plan. The PDR portion would allow up to 665 single-family detached and townhouse units, and the residential rural with a text-only development would limit the portion of the proposed development to public and civic uses. The residential rural with the development plan portion is being dedicated to the city for a future park or other civic or public use. The Planning Commission recommended denial by a vote of 11-0 on July 12th, 2022. The case was heard by City Council and referred back to staff at the October 17th, 2022 City Council meeting. Since that meeting, the applicant made 2 changes to the proposal. First, the maximum number of residential units was amended from 666 to 655. And the second, a new proffer has been made that commits 3% of the units to be income-restricted dwelling units at 80% AMI for 30 years. In addition, staff would like to inform the council the applicant will be updating text commitment number 5 to provide an option to construct a 10-foot multi-use path in lieu of paving the 5-foot bike lane and removing reference to bike lanes on both sides of Kemp Road. This change is to reflect the current standard note as NCDOT has been requiring a 10-foot shared path in lieu of allowing on-road bicycle facilities in this continuously growing area. The properties are currently designated very low-density residential and recreation and open space on the future land use map. The proposed planned development residential 3.155 zoning is inconsistent with the designated use shown on the flume. If the proposed zoning is approved, staff recommends a change to the flume to designate the property as low-density residential and recreation and open space.
Recording stopped.
4 motions.
Recording in progress.
4 motions are required for this application. The first is to adopt an ordinance annexing the property and entering into a utility extension agreement. The second is to approve the zoning ordinance for the PDR. The third is to approve the ordinance for residential rural text-only development plan. And the fourth is to approve the consistency statement. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you so much for your report. I'm going to declare that this public hearing is open, but before we go to the gallery, I'm going to ask if any of my honorable colleagues on the dais have any questions or comments for staff. All right, with that, we will turn to the applicant. We have a number of folks that have signed up to speak on this item, a number of cards. However, we will still keep it at 3 minutes per person for the public hearing. I know there's great interest in this matter, so we will honor that tonight, but first we'll turn to the applicant. Mr. Ghosh, I'm sorry, before you start, is Mrs. Laura Holloman, is she going to speak as well, or she's just?
She's available as a resource to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Forgive me, excuse me. You can proceed. How much time do you anticipate needing?
12 minutes.
12 minutes. Put 15 minutes on the clock. You can leave 3 in reserve to answer questions. All right.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and members of the City Council. I am Neil Ghosh, attorney at the Morningstar Law Group, 700 West Main Street here in Durham, and I'm representing the applicant for this rezoning, the CSC Group. Also with me tonight are Mr. Steve George from the CSC Group, Reinald Stevenson from Ramey Kemp, and Laura Holloman from McAdams. I want to thank Ms. Roper for her presentation. I'm going to try to jump a little more into the weeds here because this project has a lot going on. This project was submitted in September of 2020. After what I would describe as a pretty normal course of review, our team understood the application to be ready for Planning Commission in July of 21 or thereabouts. At that time, staff was working on the Southeast Durham Area Plan, Southeast Durham Focus Area Plan, or SEDFA plan, and had some draft SEDFA policies which they shared with us. Their advice was that we should consider revising the plan to be more consistent with the draft SEDFA policies, and we gave it a real hard try. Working with staff, we had multiple meetings, also with other departments, to discuss ideas on how the plan could best comport with the draft policies. We made some significant changes to the plan, and as a result of these, we made significant changes to the plan as a result of those meetings, which I will get into what those changes are, but this process has taken 28 months to get here today. And that's a long time. I mean, I had a baby who turned 1 in that time. So I just wanted to provide some detail on, how long this project has been in the queue and how critically the applicant has been thinking about it. Now, through those meetings, we first learned that staff looked at Kemp Road as kind of a physical indicator of development. Basically, the area east of Kemp Road needs additional investment in infrastructure in order to be viable for development. and this makes sense. Hopefully you've seen this map before. The kind of beige color here on this slide represents the basin which the Southeast Regional Lift Station is sized to service. You can see the location of the lift station on the west side of Kemp Road here with that red icon. There are a few solid lines emanating from that icon, namely to the north and to the west. Those represent sewer outfalls, which the city planned to build itself to spur development in this basin. The dashed lines extending east from the lift station also represent outfalls, but those outfalls have always been planned to be built by private development. The green blob here is the project site for this rezoning. And as you can see, this project directly is adjacent to the lift station. In our conversations with staff, they have agreed that this assemblage is the most logical place for development east of Kemp Road to begin because it could not be any closer to the lift station. It's the next thing in the sequence. Over and over, we have heard complaints about development outpacing investment in infrastructure in this region. I don't think that's something you can say about this project. One area where this project excels is in road improvements. It's no secret that traffic on 98 is pretty terrible at peak hours, especially if you're trying to make a left turn onto 98 in either direction. Certainly traffic signals can help, but part of the issue here is mere throughput. This project has commitments related to 3 different traffic signals, one at Kemp Road and 98, which is here, then another one at Kemp Road and Carpenter Pond Road, and another one at Carpenter Pond Road and Hickory Grove Church Road. Certainly those traffic signals will be helpful, but I think the real meat here are the commitments along 98. The project commits to significant road improvements along 98 in the section between Sharon Road, which would be the next intersection, so it's up here, and Kemp Road. Again, this is Kemp Road, and this is 98. This includes constructing another eastbound through lane on the south side of 98 from Sharon Road, constructing another westbound through lane on the north side of 98 eastward from Olive Branch towards Sharon Road. It also includes widening 98 on the north side to add westbound receiving lanes for the left turns from both Kemp Road and Olive Branch Road. Basically, this project is going to widen both sides of Highway 98 for most of the section between Kemp Road and Sharon Road, which greatly will increase throughput and facilitate left turn movements. This actually is calculated to not only mitigate impacts from this development, but also to improve traffic flow from what it is today. So let me restate that. We are more than mitigating, we are improving traffic flow on 98 with this project. I do not think there are many projects that can say that, and this is in addition to the traffic signals and other improvements that this project commits to that are not on 98. All told, the project commits to over $4 million worth of road improvements. Next, I want to turn your attention to the environmental commitments of this project. First, take note, we have limited the impervious coverage to no more than 24%. We also have committed to nearly double the required tree coverage and more than triple the amount of required open space. Additionally, based on our impervious area, the project only is required to provide 50-foot stream buffers, but we are providing 300-foot wide stream buffers, 6 times the required width. And to be clear, we're providing both sides of that on this project, so it is a 600-foot wide wildlife corridor undisturbed. This is in line with both the North Carolina Heritage Inventory and East Durham Open Space Plan. Also, the development plan shows only 1 stream crossing. We eliminated other stream crossings based on the feedback we got from staff about the draft SEDFA policies. We also have committed to a minimum of 3 phases, which is meant to address a concern with mass grading. We also have committed to handling the 100-year storm, in addition to increased stormwater and erosion control measures like upsizing SNEC ponds, a double row of silt fence, and the use of flocculants. It's my understanding that these commitments reflect the proposed text amendments that the Planning Department has put forth related to erosion control. The project also makes significant commitments related to recreational open space. The Lick Creek Greenway is planned through portions of this property. The project commits to providing a 100-foot wide easement for that purpose and also commits to building portions of the greenway. Generally speaking, the built portions will be within the residential area outside the floodplain. The developer here also has committed to donating a 5.5-acre area to the city of Durham for public and civic uses. That area is generally this right here. This is the 5.5-acre area. This represents a significant change to our original submittal following the feedback from staff we got about the draft SEDFA policies. The entire area west of Kemp Road originally was slated for residential development, but the need for parks in this region is pretty significant. The project will give 5.5 acres to the city for that purpose. And again, that's over here. That's 5.5 acres for a park, for Poke Park. Let me also address the area west of there, which is labeled as Cluster 1 on this slide. It may seem odd that there is a section disconnected from the rest of the PDR, and actually we thought so too. When we decided to eliminate the stream crossing on that side of Kemp Road and to donate land to the city for a park, we also offered to donate 10 acres to the city on that site for a new fire station. Those 10 acres would have included the Cluster 1 area. This offer, again, was responsive to the draft SEDFA policies. At the time we made this offer, the city had not identified a site for Fire Station 21, so we offered one. After evaluating the area that we were looking to donate, the fire department determined that the acreage was not suitable for their need. I will say the fire department also confirmed at that time that the project adequately could be serviced from existing facilities. Even though that did not work out for a fire station site, I wanted to bring it to your attention so you all can recognize the extent to which this developer has tried to meet many of the issues facing the city, and that includes affordable housing. The developer has committed that at least 3% of the final unit count will be offered as affordable for-sale product per Durham's definition. We also have committed to a minimum of 18 of those affordable units being on the east side of Kemp Road. This is to demonstrate to you the applicant's desire to put affordable units on the ground. The residential development on the west side, so this side, that depends upon pieces around it developing first. So we don't really know when that will be built. Our intent was not to push all the affordable units over to that side and figure it out later. That's why we've committed to putting at least 18 on the east side so we can get them built sooner rather than later. The developer has taken the time to consider the various requests, desires, and recommendations from stakeholders. And more than just considering them, this developer has made several changes to its development plan based on that feedback. It is hard for me to quantify all the changes to the application that were made after the application went through the staff review process the first time. This applicant decided to be proactive and made changes to its application primarily on the basis of draft SEDFA policies, and I believe they may still be in draft form, but the point is we have addressed them, and this project is all the better for it. I did not touch on everything because there is so much that this project offers. This last slide gives a rundown of the various commitments. I am betting that as you read down that list, you will find lots of things that you like. All of the credit goes to my clients. They have given you so many reasons to vote yes. I thank you for your time tonight. The team is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Goshen. You have some time in reserve to respond if you choose at the end of the public hearing. I'll turn now to the cards that I have for folk who signed up to speak, and we'll welcome each of you to the podium. In turn, I'm going to read the first 5 cards, and I'll ask that if you just line up along the railing and leave a little space between yourselves, and if you're not comfortable standing, feel free to sit as well and just come up when your name is called. I'll read an order that has been given to me by the clerk. We'll hear from Pam Andrews, Rebecca Freeman, Heidi Grable, Tammy Sawayeff, and Thomas Freeman, in that order. Good evening, good to see you all. If you'll state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
I need to get his PowerPoint off so I can get my PowerPoint on. And I don't want to disturb your PowerPoint. No problem. I just don't want to mess anybody's PowerPoint up.
Thank you.
I know we work a lot of time on, spend a lot of time on these. I just need to let that load. Ready, Tim? Can we have them on the screen so you all, the audience can see, please? Thank you. Right here, Becky. We just hit the air. I'll help you. My dad used to do this. I'm going to pull my pants up real quick before I get ready. All right. All right. Preserve Rural Durham has been here week after week after week after week, speaking to you all with concerns of Southeast Durham.
Sorry, Ms. Andrews, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm sorry.
No, I
Pam
know you.
Andrews, 6108 Wake Forest Highway. All right, so week after week, we've been here over concerns with Southeast Durham as these massive developments have been annexed into the city. I want to quote one of the new comprehensive plan goals, EN07. It will protect Durham's most sensitive natural areas like floodplains, wetlands, wildlife habitats, hillsides, and natural heritage areas from development. This has all of those factors, every one of them. My sister-in-law is going to speak about notification. We, our family, never got notification, and we have 2 parcels of land in this property. Deborah's going to speak on that in just a minute. Her parents' home place is right in the front yard, and this place widens, it will be in their living room space. So I'm going to let her deal with that. This past week, we discovered that the Durham Fire Department's response time audit from October 2022, which also included EMS data, response times are higher than the NFPA 1710 standard benchmarks. We are not putting down the fire department. We know they need manpower and equipment. We have some serious concerns about the coverage of citizens in Southeast Durham, which were also raised on the October 17th meeting, as Planning Director Sarah Young, thank you, stated. I guess staff's concerns would be that I'm not sure that there can be resolution. The issue about a fire service was raised to the applicant about 18 months ago, so there's been ample time to address that. My second point, also stated on the October 17th hearing, is that the new comprehensive plan has not been approved. Director Young again stated on the 17th, it is in draft future growth area, which is the area upcoming comprehensive plan identifies. Yes, we want to grow and develop here, but we need to have a certain key infrastructure in place in order to do that. My third point, blasting permits are not being upheld. No well has been tested in the 24 to 48 hour mandate. 3 homes on Doc Nichols Road that I pleaded for were finally tested after they finished blasting 3 weeks, not the 24, 48 hour that is in the permit mandate. These required tests were not completed. 4, in this slide, which is a Ryan Eves slide on the bottom down there, it tells us that mass grading, clear cutting has led to runoff in the creeks. High turbidity readings documented in Lick Creek back to 2020 because of these Triassic Basin soils. It acknowledges that the high bacteria and moderate to high turbidity readings were even in effect then. Why can we not wait for these new amendments to be in place? I beg you. Applicable to these mass developments. 1, that would address mass grading, tree preservation. 2, sedimentation erosion control. These are serious damage to Lick Creek, friends, which will cost millions to clean up. An algae turf scrubber is not going to fix this. We have begged week after week for a comprehensive environmental impact study. Please help Southeast Durham.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Rebecca Freeman, good evening.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I'm Rebecca Freeman from 1818 Southview Road. I'm going to cover fire protection infrastructure issues. I would call your attention to the graphic on the screen there. It is shows all the city fire stations and the 2 county volunteer fire stations in Durham. I am opposed to this dense development at this very time because of the environmentally sensitive area that it's in and because of the pending amendments that would help win this issue. On October 17, 2022, a Durham City Council meeting was scheduled for Kemp Road project in these chambers. The council refused to conduct the public hearing due to there was no city fire protection for the Kemp Road project in the future growth area, which is south of NC 98, east of Kemp and Virgil Roads, until a fire station for this outer area is in the city's capital improvement program plan. Infrastructure in this area is very limited. Kemp Road project was sent back to the County Planning Department for 90 days. Fast forward 90 days to tonight, January 17. What has changed? What with fire protection with the Kemp Road project? We understand that fire protection resources may be diverted from northern Durham to southeastern Durham to provide fire services for the Kemp Road project in the future growth area. Fire Station 8 may be at the East Regional Library and/or Station 17 at Leesville and Doc Nichols Road. City Council has approved 7,070 dwelling units that are in various stages of construction in the southeast Durham borders. Also, 2,379 dwelling units are pending for Durham County approval. That will be a total of 9,449 dwelling units in southeast Durham alone. And that border is between Sharon Road, 98, and Carpenter Pond Road. It's not all that whole big section out there. It's a very limited borders in some of the very most sensitive areas in Durham County. Diverting fire protection resources not only affects southeastern Durham, but also northern Durham. How can you provide coverage for development that doesn't exist and ignore northern Durham that does exist? I call your attention to the October 22nd Fire Department response time performance that was on page 13, that came out in October, that shows that the fire response times are below target levels. Effective response force suburban fire protection requirements are to be met 90% of the time, with 1 truck should be in place in 8 minutes with 3 firefighters. Within 3 minutes, 19 firefighters are required to be on the scene, with current firefighter staffing meeting the EFR standard at a minimum will require response from 7 fire stations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Freeman. Heidi Grable. Good evening. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening. Pick this up a little bit. My name is Heidi Grable. I do reside in Durham County. My address is 10607 Wilkins Road, so I am in the northern area. I am a realtor, so I do help people find homes all over Durham County and city. Something that we're all living with in Durham County and North Carolina and the country is that EMS staff numbers are challenged. It's hard to find people to work. Our EMS services and resources are challenged in Durham and everywhere. I hear this number, one of my questions was, what is the number of new homes that are being planned for the southeastern section of Durham? We've been heard this number is around 9,400. If the planning department has a different number, I welcome hearing that. But when we hear these areas of mass clear cutting and they're putting in 600 homes and 900 homes, and the numbers just go on. And you know, we each, citizens in Durham and everywhere, we each run our own houses by a budget. We elect officials to run our city and county by a budget, and that takes forecasting and protecting needs like health care or doctor bills for your house, or needs like EMS for a community. I'm wondering, what is the number of homes that Durham County Planning is planning to allow that we also think can be covered by services like EMS? My direct question is, which department is answerable to the taxpayers to represent that that department agrees the city and county does have resources to continue to provide EM services to the current public and the future number of houses and building permits that you are approving? Do you all know?
Ms. Grable, the time is yours.
Okay.
We'll note any questions, and if anyone wants to respond on the day, it's to you.
Okay. My other question, or at least a fact I wanted to point out, is that the 5.5 acres that they are saying is worthy of a park does appear on the map to have a stream running through it. It looked to me that if it showed that there was a fire station designated, that it looked like there was a stream that they would have to cross that would be, I would think, expensive to get to, but I don't know. I haven't been out to the site itself. And then also just the value of this neighborhood when they are willing to put so much toward roadways, and, you know, to me it's like, wow, what minerals are there under the surface that, you know, is they're willing to put so much toward this, but we appreciate that, and we appreciate any environmental concerns that you're chasing, but I do wish to get an answer for that.
Thank you very much for being with us. Good evening, Tammy.
Hi, my name is Tammy Sawaya. I'm on Baptist Road. I'm going to cover the water today. Up on the screen, you're going to see a sign that was taken a picture of yesterday. That sign is at Holly Point near Falls Lake, which is in Wake County. Holly Point is managed by North Carolina, but I want you to see the partnership between the state and Wake County. The notice is for the public. They test the area weekly and make sure that the bacteria meets county standards. However, they still say, swim at your own risk. Do not drink the water. Wash hands before eating. Shower after boating or wading. Do not go into the water if you're sick. Contact is recommended after a rain of ½ an inch or more. Next, I want to point you to minutes from the November 2nd, 2022 Durham County Environmental Board meeting. I want to read out to you one of the statements that is very alarming. I want to make sure you're aware of this. Ethan Case. I want to highlight page 11 where the data shows algae toxins were very high. We may need to mitigate this and post signs to warn the public. The water is not safe for consumption. The data points are alarming and scary. Do you have enough resources for the data collection? And later on, Mr. Wolfook states that the most recent data was by North Carolina State University. You've heard Samantha Crott. She has been taking samples, and and we have shared them with you, that the E. coli and the turbidity is very high. I also want to remind you that this impacts a business, Rolling View Marina. He had a sonar testing in July of last year, and the sediment is running off, filling in the lake. He's had 2 feet in the last 2 years. This is impacting a business. If you allow this mass grading in this area for Kemp Road, which is the closest to Lick Creek and will impact the Rolling View Marina the most, you're impacting a business. Do we want to keep degrading Falls Lake? Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thomas Freeman.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for being with us. If you'll state your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name is Thomas Freeman. My home is 1818 Southview Road, Durham, North Carolina. Okay, I'll be talking about a number of points tonight, so I'll be moving right along. Talk about the development of the riparian buffers. The perennial streams provide 150-foot buffers with natural vegetation. Intermittent streams provide a 100-foot buffer with natural vegetation. And no stormwater devices, retaining walls of boundary, wildlife, or riparian buffers in this area. I'd reference the comprehensive plan GI-18 for new development. Topography. Anyone that knows anything about this site knows what a terrible topographic challenge this site is, which will require a great deal of blasting. The elevations there, the high points are elevation 395 MSL, mean sea level, and 265 at the floor of Lick Creek. That's a 130-foot vertical change. If you'll notice the slide, one on the top right actually depicts the site there at Lick Creek at the power line crossing. That's a 130-foot vertical drop. And by comparison, you might see a state historic landmark, Old Baldy, on Bald Head Island, which is approximately 110 feet. And by comparison, the approximate height, this is equal to a 10-story building. We have a 10-story height differential there on that site. If you look at the topographical map, the darker lines indicate the almost vertical conditions of that site. There's 138 buildable acres of a 279-acre site. And why is that? It's because of wetlands, stream buffers, power lines, and floodplains. This is too much land disturbance on this site for the slope and Triassic basins. Additionally, the first phase of development, this is what the investor proposes, that 40% would be 112 acres, which is actually 81% of the buildable acres. Okay, there's one extra slide that I don't have. It's not showing, but that's adverse impacts to neighbors. And there we go. Thank you very much. And would identify there are two intermittent streams that originate on the east side of the proposed development that flow into private property onto Rocky Branch, which will affect two houses on Southview Road. The effects of stripping of vegetation, blasting, and mass grading is going to have devastating effects on Lick Creek.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us tonight. All right, friends, the next group of cards I have are Donna Stainback. Is that Paneri Arwilly? Hey. Struggling tonight, friends. Well, Wanda, I think y'all are messing with me. Wanda Allen, Deborah Andrews, and Jacob Freeman. Good evening. If you state your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes. Good to see you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and City Council members. I am Donna Stainback from 4825 Jimmy Rogers Road, Durham, North Carolina, a lifelong resident. I'm going to speak on two topics that were in the matrix I sent on Thursday. The first being the land disturbance, which includes clear cutting, grading, and blasting. This project has gigantic development phase, and that is too large for clear cutting and grading on Triassic soil with steep slopes. It has 6 streams that you saw pictured earlier that with Lick Creek running through the site, and that's the site that has the 300-foot wide buffers. The property is 23 to 133 feet from the Army Corps of Engineer property and the Falls Lake critical watershed. Due to the nearness to the lake, the vegetation will not have a chance to help cleanse the tomato soup runoff. All these factors affect the choice of phase size. This project requires a max of 25 acres per development phase. Examples like Charlotte has a max of 20 acres and Cary has a max of 25. The project also requires TC 22-00005 erosion amendment ground cover clauses to be part of the plan for the clear cutting and grading. There were several of these parts of the amendment included, but the ground cover is critical for a project this big to be exposed for as long as it is, to make sure that it's done per the new standards. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about blasting. What we would like is for the fire chief should enforce permit rules on the developer. No wells have been passed within the 48 hours, the 24 to 48 hour rule, and the blasting companies have not been abiding by the permits. There's other places that I will mention that. Third, we're requesting independent third-party testing of wells and providing results within 7 days to well owners. And we require a blasting schedule and enforcement. Blasting just occurring like in one area on Olive Branch. They've got 3 different blasting sites, and the neighbors are just don't know when it's going to occur. And we volunteered to help notify the neighbors if they would provide us a schedule, and that's not even been done. We would like to enforce the blasting permit, that it should be given, notice should be given 30 minutes ahead of the detonation and the location of where the blasting is to be done. We're not getting that. The neighbors are just at the mercy. We require expansion of pre-blast notification and insurance area from 750 to 1,000 feet and provide a natural buffer for blasting.
Stainback, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Good evening. You'll have 3 minutes after you state your name and address for the record. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pam Williams. I live at 2130 Adventure Trail, lifelong resident of Durham. Proffers needed to be provided include a 50-foot boundary buffer and a 08 opacity to include 30-foot natural buffer along property lines as shown in sketch. No walls, berms, and fences within the boundary buffer. A 50-foot boundary buffer is being provided on another property in this area. This is needed for the development due to critical watershed, triassic soils, better filtration of stormwater, cleaner air, protection for homeowners to maintain their existing tree line, as you can see in the third picture where all the trees were removed and the homeowners lost several trees. This is also needed as a separation from the high density and the existing property owners. This property has 3,000 feet of road frontage with beautiful mature trees. My question is, will there be shoulder or any widening on the roadway down to the bridge to provide additional shoulders out there, especially adding close to 6,000 trips per day? A proffer would be to provide a 30-foot border buffer with 06 capacity along the right-of-way, no walls, ditches, or fences within the border. This is needed to reduce the hardscape as shown in the middle picture and to respect the existing character of the community as stated in CP, Comprehensive Plan H.03 and GI 21. Note the mature trees across the street from the hardscape subdivision in the picture number 2. The third proffer would be to provide tree protection and coverage in each phase as recommended in the text revision number 4 as previously talked about, and not allow double count of buffers to facilitate design that promotes retention of natural topography, soil health, integrity of the existing site. I would also like to note that the wildlife corridor is almost completely floodplain out there that couldn't be built on anyway. Kemp Road, let me see. Okay, infrastructure. Kemp Road is a narrow 10-foot lane roadway with poor horizontal and vertical sight distance. There's approximately 86,000 acres in suburban Lick Creek watershed, and almost 1,000 acres are under construction today. Within the next 5 years, the increase in traffic in this area will be approximately 61,000 trips per day, additional trips per day, an increase in population close to 9,000. And you can see the graph with the numbers where we came up with 9,000 units and trips per day, 76,000, with the ones that are looking at being amended. This all came from TIAs. It's been done. It's not my calculation. I just added it all up. There are no proposed road improvements, no transit proposed in the next 30 years, no bond improvements for roads, no commercial infrastructure to support this growth, which will create additional congestion, safety issues, increased air pollution, and basically chaos. Schools are overcrowded, EMS and police are understaffed, fire department is lacking staff and equipment, hospital overcrowded, and the list can go on. We are relying on other counties to help us, and they have their own issues. Please help us.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Tonight. Wanda Allen, good evening. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, I'm Wanda Allen. It's nice to see you guys again. I live at 2111 Rodeo Road in Durham, NC. So what I'm planning to talk to you tonight about is I do trust that we all will remember that the decisions that we're making on the local level is also having an impact on the entire state. In 2022 and 2021, $17 million have already been set aside to clean up our streams. We, as taxpayers, are paying for that. There are 2 creeks that are listed in that funding, and you guys are very much aware of them. They're Lick Creek, Ellery Creek. You also very much aware of the Little Lick Creek and how we, right here in Durham, have put $1.3 million to clean up that creek. That is only 600 linear feet Can you imagine how much it's going to cost us as taxpayers to clean up Falls Lake, which runs 28 miles to the Neuse River? So I think we're at a transition. I think we're at a crossroads. I think we have got to stop and we have got to look, do we take another route? We have seen the data. We have heard week after week how our decisions are making an impact on our environment. We in Durham and the whole state of North Carolina are having to pay for these decisions. So we've seen where the city has provided data that Lick Creek was already destroyed in 2020. We've heard from the state of North Carolina. We've heard from Diener. We've heard from the federal government. And we've also heard from, Sound Rivers, that it is damaged. So are we going to continue going down this road, or are we going to try to take a different route? So we've learned from this process. What have we learned from this process? We have triacid soils, which are unique. We've learned that many times. We've heard that many times. We have heard the streams, the lakes are being destroyed. We have heard that we are putting Durham citizens and the state and the citizens of North Carolina in jeopardy. So we can't take back the damage that we've done. We can't. But we can make a decision tonight to turn and take a different road. We can do that. You can make that decision. You can implement that tax amendment, which will lessen the impact and the pain on this environment.
Ms. Allen, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Deborah Andrews, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm not a speaker, so you'll have to bear with me, city council members. My name is Deborah Andrews. I live at 5612 Wake Forest Highway. I do want to say that all public records for any property that's owned by me, my brother, and my sisters all come to my address. And I want to clarify that none of my family received any letters about this development. And so therefore, we were never able to attend a neighborhood meeting. On the adjacent property information section with parcel ID numbers and owner names, the Andrews siblings are listed, but we never received letters. My sister-in-law, Pam, who also owns the property, made an attempt on March 29th, 2022, once she learned of this parcel's potential annexation from a friend. Mike and Pam called McAdams Developer after a neighbor shared the information they had received in 2020. For 3 years, we waited for a response, as well as made more phone calls. On April the 18th, 2022, almost 3 weeks later, Pam reached out to Director Sarah Young to let her know our family was not getting a response. We wanted to get clarification on the impact this development would have on our family land and Pam and Mike's septic drain field, which sits on the back of the property not far from the floodplain. To this day, there has been no meeting with the development firm.
Thank you, ma'am, for being with us tonight. Jacob Freeman. Good evening, sir. If you'll state your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for being with us.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the time this evening. So my name is Jacob Freeman, and I reside at 6408 Olivia Terrace in Raleigh, North Carolina, 27613. Go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I come to you tonight as a concerned citizen of Wake County regarding Lick Creek and the Falls Lake watershed. The area proposed high-density development is a very large part of the watershed in Lick Creek and into Falls Lake, the major drinking water source for the approximately 469,000 citizens of Raleigh. This is of significant concern to me as a Raleigh citizen interested in the health of Falls Lake, and also as a sportsman interested in responsible land management and environmental conservation. I'm a fisherman. I like fishing. There are 2 aspects to my concern. Firstly, during construction, runoff from mass grading will result in increases in pollution directly in Falls Lake. The pollution from increased turbidity into Lick Creek has already been well documented and conveyed on numerous occasions, even with erosion measures in place, erosion control measures. Erosion, water turbidity, and the problems it creates are significant concern given the nature of the Triassic Basin soils in the area and the proximity to Falls Lake. You can throw a stone and hit Falls Lake from this area. Mass grading requires removal of all vegetation and conducting a cut and fill operation for construction. This is the antithesis of many of the city's goals for environmental sustainability that I've looked at on your website. The method of land development generates many environmental issues since you are not building with the topography of the land. Secondly, after construction, the proposed development will significantly reduce the impervious surface of the land regardless of the amount of buffer placed around long-established water flow routes in the area. The significant overall reduction in impervious surface combined with mass grading has significant potential to alter established water flow volumes and velocities, decreasing opportunity for water to slow prior to flowing Lick Creek and other water flow routes. This increases chances of flooding for residents in low-lying areas of Southview Road, results in ongoing erosion of Lick Creek and potentially new flooding and larger flooding areas in those spaces due to the increased volume of runoff. All this runoff will result in ongoing water quality problems from Lick Creek and pollution of Raleigh's drinking water supply. Lick Creek has already been identified as an impaired water stream on the 303D list and identified as a watershed with nutrient-sensitive waters according to UNRBA. If you approve this annexation, you will add to the Durham taxpayers' responsibility for cleaning up the already impaired watershed. Currently, the City of Durham website identifies Lick Creek watershed as needing identification and cessation of pollution sources into the creek. That's on the website for Durham City. The project would drastically increase the scope of the creek impacted and the cost to the citizens of Durham for cleanup. So that's all areas that are already developed, not including this area that's up for rezoning. So for all the reasons that I've stated here, I'm against the proposed annexation of the Kemp Road property and support keeping the current zoning to protect Falls Lake. Thank you.
Mr. Freeman, thank you for being with us tonight, sir. Friends, just an advisory, we are approaching the top of the hour, and I'm going to call a break around 9 and 9:01. I have 2 cards left. We do have a couple of people in queue on our virtual platform, so I will exhaust my cards, and then we will take a break, and then we will come back and continue this public hearing. Tina Motley and Samantha Kropp. Good evening. If you'll state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much. My name is Tina Motley Pearson. I live at 2205 Olive Branch Road. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and the rest of the City Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. So you saw the topography. So I'd like to ask, how are they going to develop this? Are they going to cut down the hilltops? It would still be 70 to 80-foot slopes on the sides. How many truckloads are needed to move such enormous amounts of soil? How much diesel fuel gets burned in this area? We've seen over 100 trucks pass by our property in a few days. How much dynamite is going to have to be used on this property? This is so bad. How can you consider it without even seeing a development plan? As of last week, Andrew Lester at the Planning Department said he hasn't even seen a development plan for this development. But clearly the developers have a plan, because how would they know that they were going to build 655 units here? If this plan, is the plan so bad that they can't even show it? If you put houses on the edge of the slopes, a kid is going to have to go down 70 to 80-foot slopes to retrieve the ball. If you want to see a development with lesser slopes, you could drive through Findle Farms. It's actually a semi-retirement community. And you could see what they've had to engineer to develop some of these slopes. There are 2 levels of retaining walls and 2 levels of fences in some of these areas. So as you've been hearing, there's a lot of damage in southeast Durham due to the blasting and mass grading of over 1,000 acres. So if you vote yes on this project and all the others in the queue, you need to ask yourself, why do I call myself a civil servant? Whom do I serve? Because it's not the citizens. You're merely pawns of these big development companies. The developers don't care anything about the citizens and the environment. They have finagled the whole process so it works to their advantage. They have effectively removed the input of the residents from this equation. They do not show us the plans. It's a blank check pass. They got rid of protest petitions. They put in developer-friendly allies in so-called environmental positions. The State Environmental Regulatory Agency has been defunded by nearly half of its budget. Even clear violations of sediment and erosion issues in Durham have been completely ignored until the citizens got involved. The almighty developers say jump, and some of you say how high. And if you think you have the power to control them, you don't. The developers, when there's complications—
Thank you, Ms. Motley. Your time has expired.
They offer a bribe.
Your time has
otherwise
expired.
known as a
Thank you.
proffer.
Thank you. Samantha Crop.
Slides that I sent over beforehand. I'm not sure exactly how to pull them up.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please? And you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Is it all right if I pull up my slides before my 3 minutes begin?
Sure.
Thank you. Perfect. My name is Samantha Crop. I live at 5228 Olive Road in Raleigh, North Carolina. And as I said earlier, I'm here speaking in my position as the Neuse River Keeper with the nonprofit Sound Rivers because of the work that I've been doing in the Lick Creek watershed. I wanted to be a little bit more specific about some of the concerns that folks have been bringing up earlier. You've been hearing a lot about water quality impacts in Lick Creek, and I actually just wanted to share some of those with you. So what you have on the screen right now is actually photos from the most recent visit that I took to the Lick Creek area. This is sediment coming out of a dewatering pond from a stormwater device on an active development. This is actually a McAdams development that is pouring water from this pipe into this creek, which is not a natural waterway, by the way. This is a sediment-filled creek that is not typically there. And as you can see here, it's meeting Lick Creek. So the lighter colored water is actually Lick Creek proper, and the darker sediment-filled water is that sediment pipe flowing from the development and into the creek. Now, this is a Clean Water Act violation. I did report this to Durham Sediment and Erosion Control, and the response that I get when I report these violations is essentially that our current sediment and erosion control regulations are not sufficient to necessarily prevent this in the Triassic Basin. This is not a sediment and erosion violation under our current regulations, but it is a Clean Water Act violation. And what that means is that we need to update our rules to protect clean water. They're not doing their job in the Triassic Basin. I pulled a couple more slides from a GIS specialist who was able to pull some satellite images. These are sort of hard to see, so I'm happy to share them in the future. But essentially, this just shows the rate of development happening in the area. On the left is 2021, the right is 2023, this month. You can just see the changes. That's all clear cutting happening in the Lick Creek watershed. This is a 15 square mile watershed. So this isn't all of Durham County. I'm talking about a really specific part of the watershed that's being disproportionately impacted. And here, I wanted to show, this is pictures taken in the same area just last November, before and after a significant rain event. On the right-hand side, you can see that's Falls Lake. The sediment coming from Lick Creek, that's the tributary, after this rain event and pouring into Falls Lake. We are not making this up when we say that this is a real issue. I would not be focusing so much of my time when I have a 6,000 plus square mile watershed to focus so much energy on this. This is a true concern. I wanted to show the areas that I've been doing water quality sampling. You can see these blue marks. These are all the places that I've gotten turbidity readings that are over orders of magnitude above the state standards in each of these locations. Here, you can see those same 4 dots surrounded by all of the red dots are active developments in the area. This area is literally under siege. The yellow dots, or the orange dots on there, are where the city is testing. In sum, I just want to say, I think we can do better. I know we can do better, and I hope that you can at least pause until new, stronger regulations are in place.
Thank you.
We're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank all of you for being here tonight. It's 9:03 p.m. I'm going to put us in recess until 9:04 until 9:14. We will gavel back at 9:14 promptly.
two important sustainable transportation
Recording
projects
stopped.
here in Durham will now receive a combined $4.3 million in federal funding, thanks to the Appropriations Omnibus Bill recently signed by President Biden. The bill allocates $2.3 million for the R. Kelly Bryant Bridge Trail. Using the bridge across the Durham Freeway that opened in 2010, the trail will reconnect communities and destinations that were divided and harmed by the freeway's construction half a century ago. As a result, mobility will be increased and transportation options will be diversified for the surrounding residential neighborhoods and local schools. The bill also provides $2 million in funding for zero-emissions bus purchases for the Go Durham transit system. That amount should be enough to buy 2 zero-emissions battery electric buses. This funding is the result of nearly 2 years of work between us and Representative David Price's office. More information about our transportation department can be found at durhamnc.gov/1002 and by following them on Twitter at MoveSafeDurham.
Summer, let's get started with you. I know you lead the city's sustainability efforts. And overall, what is your goal when it comes to building and maintaining the city's properties?
So we exist in the General Services Department for the city, and the General Services Department is responsible for constructing, operating, and maintaining high-quality city facilities that are visually appealing, but also sustainable. And we do that using all the divisions within the department, facilities, project management. We work with the departments across the city in partnership with the combined goal of increasing our energy efficiency and improving the renewable energy use in our city facilities.
What are our clean energy goals now, and and how was it impacted by this first plan?
Oh yeah, so the Carbon Neutrality and Renewable Energy Action Plan really sets forth 2 bold and ambitious goals. It makes us a leader in this space. We're one of the first communities in North Carolina to commit to 100% carbon neutrality in city operations by 2040 and 100% renewable energy sourcing in city operations by 2050.
Did you know the City of Durham has interpretation and translation services available? The city adopted a language access plan to provide language services and help non-English speakers have access to city services and programs without a language barrier. Through the city's language access plan, residents have the right to request interpretation and translation services free of charge, receive translation of vital documents and emergency communications in Spanish, and submit complaints of language discrimination or on the failure to adequately provide services in accordance with the city's language access plan policy. For more information on the city's language access efforts, visit durhamnc.gov/languageaccess. ¿Sabía que la ciudad de Durham cuenta con servicios de interpretación y traducción? La ciudad adoptó un plan de acceso al idioma para ofrecer servicios lingüísticos y ayudar a que las personas que no hablan inglés puedan tener acceso a los servicios y programas de la ciudad sin la barrera del idioma. Por medio del plan de acceso al idioma, los habitantes tienen derecho a solicitar sin costo alguno servicios de interpretación y traducción, recibir la traducción de documentos importantes y de comunicaciones de emergencia en español, presentar una denuncia de discriminación por motivos de idioma o por no recibir servicios de manera adecuada de acuerdo con la política del plan de acceso al idioma de la ciudad. Para recibir más información sobre la labor de la ciudad relacionada con el acceso al idioma, visita durhamnc.gov/acceso.
environmental, exactly. So I would have to defer to them. That's actually.
We had to turn off the speakers, right?
Yeah, well, in chamber. If the chamber will be in order, we're ready to resume our public hearing on item number 13, Kemp Road. Thank you all for your perseverance and for sticking with us. We're going to continue this public hearing. We'll now turn to our residents and citizens who are in queue on our virtual platform who wish to speak. Madam Clerk, I see two people identified for item number 13, but on the printed manifest, there's also Fangjing Li. I'm not sure whether he's a proponent or opponent, but I'll start with the two folk who have identified the item that they want to speak on, at least the number on the queue as I'm reading it on the screen. So if you'll make Katie Ross hearable. Katie Ross, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. Are you a proponent or opponent of this item?
Opponent.
Opponent? All right.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us. If you'll state your name and address, you have 3 minutes. We appreciate you being with us.
Okay, for some reason I've lost the visual, but that's okay. I wanted to say that, Katie Ross, 8135 Lowell Valley Drive, Bahama, 27503. So like Heidi Grable, I'm a representative in North Durham County. But we're looking very with great apprehension over what has happened and what is happening in Southeast Durham that these people put on the wonderful presentation about tonight. Specific, to be concrete, I noticed that there's apparently some kind of plan to deny Bahama and North Durham County a laddered fire engine and somehow transfer this down to the southeast to help with the lack of response of EMS and fire down there. We want to say that would be very damaging to North Durham. We need EMS. And I was just telling my personal story, what didn't happen here, it happened in my old state of Washington State. My husband had a massive cardiac arrest, and he happened to be, we happened to be walking into the ER when it happened. But they said we had to wait for an ambulance at our house for 5 or 10 minutes that he wouldn't have made it. And that's how critical the timing can be on EMS responses. So I think would be criminal to remove a service from North County to put it down there just to facilitate the building of thousands of new homes. You should have the infrastructure down there first before you put in all of these people who will also be in danger if there is not sufficient fire and EMS protection. And I know at the last meeting, I believe that you in particular said that you are not going to authorize the building of developments before the fire and safety was established. So I hope that that is still the case. I haven't heard anything that's changed about that aspect that should favor this development. So that's that. The other thing I would say is just we look at this with apprehension because we don't want here in North Durham County to see the same kind of horrible pollution of the water and the degrading of the open space and trees. We all suffer when you allow that to happen anywhere in the county. Our kids and my grandchild, we go all over the county trying to find recreation and hiking and things like that. And that is no longer going to be available when you keep allowing this uncontrolled growth all over the county.
Ms. Ross, thank you so much.
That's about what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. And may I say I'm grateful that your days with your husband are extended. Thank you for being with us. Stephen Neal, if you'll make Mr. Neal hearable. Stephen Neal, can you hear me? It's like his microphone is.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
yeah. You can if you'll state your name and first off, are you a proponent or opponent?
Opponent, please.
Okay, sure. If you'll state your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for being with us and hanging in here with us tonight.
Thank you. Stephen Mill, co-founder of the Leesville Road Coalition, 1021 Restoration Drive. This project came up for review on October 22nd. It was referred back to the planning department until such time that fire department capacity was sufficient to handle it. Our questions today are all in the service of protecting people and property, as Mayor Pro Tem Middleton said was the priority in that meeting. One place where development is outpacing infrastructure is fire capacity. So much so that both Mayor Pro Tem and the city manager told both the fire and planning departments to stop including cumulative effects in development documents. Yes, fire could cover this development, but then they'd have to not cover others. Following that meeting, I sent 2 public records requests, one to the fire department to ask for their metrics document, and one to the city manager's office to ask for the data that during that meeting, city manager Page said there wasn't an issue. I received the fire department documents, but even with multiple follow-ups, have not received anything from the city manager's office 60 days later. So I have a couple of questions for the city council and the city manager. Can you explain what's changed with fire capacity since October 22nd meeting? Is there a plan to expand fire service, and will it be done before the 9,000 plus recently approved homes in Southeast Durham are populated? Now, I'm a realtor, so I'm guessing that's 36 months or so to have it all ready for them. Will this change also fix the fire department response times and keep us all safe? So that's all I had to really say, but the fire issue is a big one, and I think it needs to be paid attention to. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for being with us and for your comments. I have Madam Clerk Fang-Xing Lee on my list. If you'll make Fang-Xing hearable. Fang-Xing Lee, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Are you a proponent or opponent?
I'm a proponent.
Proponent. Okay, if you'll state your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes as well. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My name is Fang-Xing Li. Address is 5501 Kemp Road. I support this project because, as we all know, Durham needs housing, and we are in a housing crisis. So I would respectfully submit that building new houses is actually serving the citizens. And the thing is, we do need responsible builders that are willing to do the best for the city, not just making money for themselves. So in that sense, I think the builder has offered significant offsite improvement. I think about $4 million in terms of traffic improvements, which would greatly benefit the traffic conditions in 98, which is not great. I have firsthand knowledge about that. And we desperately need that. And I find it interesting that one of the previous speakers questioned the intention of the builders, who is basically willing to share the profit. And the other thing is, this is a big project, which would help in terms of the housing crisis. And also, it is precisely because this is a big project, it can share this level of profit to help improving the roads. If we keep getting piecemeal projects that are very small, then it's impractical to ask the builders to share their profits or building these offsite improvements. And also, as far as I know, the builder has already consulted with a world-renowned professor at NC State who specializes in water turbidity control. And we will hire a experienced company to implement this very strictly to address these environmental concerns, as well as all the other development aspects were far exceeding the general guidelines. So all in all, I think, this is a responsible builder that potentially can, is very willing to help the city, and they are trying to do their best. And also, I heard that after the fire department concern issue raised was last time, which was clarified today, at the time, the builder already agreed or committed to hold the development until this is fully resolved. Now you may question, why they want to, still go ahead and not waiting. I think, one good reason is that, it takes a lot of resources to review and approve this. So I think they are trying to their best. That's going to benefit the city, not mentioning all the other, the parks, as well as the contribution to the sewer, as well as the pump station. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Mr. Lee, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Madam Clerk, I see a JR in the queue with their hand up. If you will just make the person hearable so I can ID them.
Let me know, excuse me, let me know if you can hear me.
Yeah, good evening, JR. We can hear you. Are you a proponent or opponent for this item?
Opponent.
Opponent. Okay, would you state your name and address, please? And you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Jerry Ray, and I'm at 1109 Stallings Road. And just want to share a few quick things with you concerning today, not the 9,400 homes that we're just looking to be built, but I want to share some things with you just today, especially concerning the heart attack or the EMS call. So on 12/16 in Durham, we had a subject with heart failure, going into cardiac arrest, and I wanted you to hear the actual police communication. I recorded it from the 911 dispatcher.
Heart problem, 1814 Howie Hill Drive, Cross Street, Trailview Lane, medic 21.
21 remain on dispatch, all response, no first responder available.
Okay, in that call, there's heart failure and no first responders available. The next one we have was on New Year's Eve.
As soon as we have some ambulances that are available, we'll have an ambulance. The call is holding for EMS to be dispatched.
That is your 911 dispatcher on that date, stating to the dispatchers, telling everyone she does not have an EMS unit available anywhere to send out to that 911 call. That is your EMS. Next, I want to show you New Year's Eve with the police department.
I just gave out for District 1, but I do have 4 District 4 calls that are needing dispatch.
That was the 911 dispatcher saying she has 4 911 calls to the police department. She has 4. She has no police officers available to send to either one of these 4 calls. These calls could have been basically anything. Who knows what they could have been. It is heartbreaking for me to sit here and hear these calls when I listen to this police scanner. Our EMS, you can hear it in their voice. The fire department, you can hear it in their voice, especially hear it in the police department's voice. They are just so frustrated, I guess I would say. And here we're talking about today. We're not talking about the 9,400 homes. Talking about today. And I have just one more. I want you to know what our police officers have to deal with. And this one thing they had to deal with on New Year's Eve, where people were shooting fireworks at the police in front of the police station.
What is going on?
15 people standing outside the jail throwing fireworks at us.
Okay, 15 people throwing fireworks outside the jail at the police. This happened New Year's Eve.
Jerry, thank you. Your time has expired, sir. Thank you
very much.
Thank you for being with us. We appreciate you. Madam Clerk, did we hear from Katie Ross? We did. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, I think I've exhausted all of the cards I have and those that are in queue that were in queue on our platform. I do see some other names in the attendees list, but no one's indicated they wish to speak. Mr. Ghosh, you have some time in reserve. Do you want to respond to anything that our speakers have brought up?
Yes, please. Many things. I think that we've heard repeatedly today that there's a desire that this project adhere to the draft text amendments that are in review and being considered. There is no site plan in review for this development. This development is not grandfathered in that sense. And so if those text amendments are passed, the development of this property will be subject to those text amendments. Now, aside from that, the project already commits to a number of items which are consistent with those text amendments. The double silt fence, the use of flocculants, the upsized stormwater ponds. These are all commitments on this zoning. Handling the 100-year storm. These are all commitments on the zoning. Some of those are in the proposed text amendments from staff related to stormwater and erosion control. And like I said, regardless of whether they were part of the zoning or not, if the new text amendments are adopted later this year, there's no site plan in for this development. This development will be subject to those text amendments. I did want to just briefly touch on, I think there was a question about someone who didn't get notice from the applicant or the planning department related to this development. And I can't speak directly to that. I will say that we follow the protocols for sending out notification, which the planning department follows as well. We pull our mailing addresses from the tax records. Sometimes the tax records don't line up with the actual address that the person receives their mail at. But that would explain why the mail never got there if the tax record was incorrect. But at the end of the day, I mean, we send that notification area map to the planning department for review before sending out notices. And I'm sure the planning department uses a similar list that we would pull from the tax records because it's the same notification requirement. So I would just say it is my belief that we have sent out notices consistent with the city's requirements for the same. I do feel like we are, this project is being asked to answer for fire safety in a way that I'm not sure I've seen other projects held to that standard or whatever the case may be. And I won't pretend to know everything there is to know about the inner workings of the Durham Fire Department. But what I will tell you is that I do trust our professionals in the fire department. And at no point in our correspondence with the fire department about this project was it indicated to us that there is not enough fire safety capacity. In fact, my recollection is, I think it was, back in that July 21 timeframe when we were meeting with staff about the draft set for policies and the various departments, we had proffered to give 10 acres for a new fire station site. And, they looked at it and evaluated that property and said, they being the fire department looked at it, evaluated the property and said, no, this isn't going to suit our needs. But understand that we are able to service your project right now. So it's not like we need the facility in order for this project to work. That's been our understanding the whole time, right? And I don't know what else to say about that, but I will tell you that the developer here has no intention of building houses if there isn't adequate fire, EMS, police capacity to service those houses. It just not what they want to do, and I don't know how else to address that, other than to say that it is our understanding that there is currently enough fire safety capacity, or that if it is, or when, and if it is found that there is a need for additional fire safety capacity, that the city is prepared to and has in fact located a site for Fire Station 21 to service a wider range in this basin. So, we are feeling pretty confident in our city's ability to manage the fire safety issues and concerns here. And that's really all I can say about that. I just want to point out that, again, there are several commitments on this development that are all responsive to things that you all have been hearing, that we have been hearing for months, particularly from the Preserve Rural Durham folks and other constituents. We have tried to meet every request that has been asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the chamber that has not spoken already who wishes to speak on this item? Is there anyone in the chamber who has not spoken? If you would approach the podium, state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Bliss Flowcare. I'm at 2512 Inglewood Avenue. I don't believe that wildlife has specifically been addressed this evening. Wildlife is an integral part of all ecosystems, integral part of keeping certain types of wildlife at bay and in keeping water clean. And I have here the ncwildlife.org. In this particular part of Durham, it is recorded that there are 41 to 50 white-tailed deer per square mile. That's a huge amount of that, and this is just deer. That's a huge amount of deer that we are displacing. This is not considering birds, snakes, mice, opossums, any other type of wildlife. I currently work at a wildlife rehabilitation center, and we take in wildlife from all over the state. This is going to have such a huge impact on wildlife. It's sort of unimaginable when we just consider that's 14,000 deer. And again, that's just deer. That's not considering anything else. I would also like to address that it's being repeated that the fire station said, or the fire department said, oh, we can handle this development back in June. This is not June. We have not been shown the actual changes in staffing or in calls or in housing. That's a many months of change that could have happened. So I just don't feel like that's really a reputable argument. I would also like to just say that 3% affordable housing is very, very low. And if we are trying to speak to making housing more accessible in Durham, having 3% of that actually accessible to most people who live in Durham or who are being displaced because of the people moving here, that's not really solving any problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Is there anyone else in the chamber who wishes to speak on this item who has not spoken already? This is a public hearing. All right, seeing none, I believe we've exhausted all of the cards and we've polled the House. As anyone else who wants to speak in this public hearing, I will yield now to my colleagues on the dais for any questions or comments. I'll look to my left first. Council Member Hyman.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I guess let me preface by saying we know this area has a lot of building, and what I try to do is look at each individual case. So my sometimes voting goes with yes, sometimes it goes with no, right? But I'm really concerned that I don't think that the amount of people that keep coming here every week after week after week is making up half of the stuff that they're saying, right? And so I would like to, I can't in good conscience keep, like again, I do my votes based on every individual situation, right? But I don't know if we can get an environmental study or something done out there, because for me as a professor, it's all about evidence-based needs assessments. That's what we need, because I can't consider, I don't think any of my colleagues up here would vote for things knowing that they're putting people in danger. I know that, I know that. I can say that with with my whole heart and spirit. But I have to be able to make an informed decision. And I can't sometimes do that when we have our residents that come and they have major data, right? And then we have other people saying that that's not happening. And then we have the builders saying that. And again, I want to say thank you, because yes, you have tried to address a lot of the concerns. But this is 600 and something of whatever you want to call it out there, right? And so my concern is, if this stuff is going on now and we keep building out there, what's happening to the people that are going to like either purchase these homes or go live in these townhomes? But I have to make sure, like, I need somebody to help me. Somebody has to do an environmental study to find out what is going on out there before I can make any more decisions. And I want to say it on the record that, again, I take every case and I look at the case, and because I know that we have to build. I get it. I know we need housing. I get it. But I cannot in good conscience keep hearing this week after week after week, and I don't really know, is it happening? Is it not happening? Are they really drinking this water that's contaminated? Do we really have enough fire people? We're listening to actually people call EMS. I just don't understand. So I don't know if I can ask maybe y'all staff, is there any way that we can get an environmental study, a needs assessment or something out there so that I can make more informed decisions? Because again, I make decisions based on it, because I know we have to build, I get it. And so I've learned that. But I also know that I can't continue in good conscience to keep voting for this stuff, right, or not, but whatever, and we're putting people out there, and if you're really saying that this is happening out there, I gotta know. So I'm based on, I need evidence, needs assessment, what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Colleagues, anyone else? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just have a couple comments about this case. I think most of the things about this project are good, are fine. I think it's, I want us to build especially townhouses in most parts of the city, and am interested in projects that have higher levels of environmental commitments than our standards, that provide more road commitments than our standards, et cetera. My problem with this project is where it is, and that is in the future growth area that's been defined by our Southeast Durham future growth plans. And we asked our staff to create those policies because we needed guidance with regard to developing this region. And our staff gave us that guidance and said that we should not build east of Kemp Road until we improve the infrastructure to be able to manage development in that region. And I thought that policy was reasonable and sound. And the staff these rezoning cases are very adversarial. You have developers on one side, you have opponents on the other side, and I honestly don't, neither of y'all are neutral, right? Everyone's coming to this with their own bias. Our staff are the closest to like neutral, unbiased arbiters that we have. And our staff is telling us that we shouldn't develop in this area yet. There are, I think, good arguments for this project. It is right on the boundary. It is probably what will get developed there at some point anyway, but we intentionally drew this line. We drew it at Kemp Road. And for me, I don't think it makes sense to walk back that policy, given, I mean, we asked the staff for advice. This was the advice that they gave us, and I feel, and I trust them. I trust their advice, and I'm not interested in moving forward with this project at this time. I think that when we get to a point of developing east of Kemp Road, this project has a lot of benefits, and I would have no problem voting for it in another location, but I think that it's important that we stick to the advice that we've been given around development in this area, particularly given the rapid growth that we're seeing and to have some sort of guiding principle feels important to me. And not developing east of Kemp Road is one of the principles that that our staff has asked us to move forward with. And I think we should stick with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Council Member. Colleagues, anyone else? Council Member Freeman and Council Member Caballero.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions. I wanted to clear up the notification requirement comment, because it feels like, I don't want to just glaze over that. If folks are not receiving their notification and we're saying that we've done it, I want to make sure that the process is actual, and if there's a need to make a correction, that we make the correction first. And that's one. And then second, I do want to ask the applicant just to respond to one of the questions that one of the speakers made about the location of the fire station offer being across a stream across a stream, and why you would think that would be a great place for a fire station is beyond me, but I would love to hear if it is that location or not. Those are two main questions. And then I just had a couple of comments after that. I think staff was going to go first about the notifications.
Sure, yeah, and we do have a standard process to ensure that residents within 600 feet of proposed sites are being contacted. So in our review process, we did go back and check. The applicant did send us a list of contacts, and I believe Deborah Andrews was on that list. Now I can't say, that's our process, and so if they didn't get the mail, we'll have to kind of look into that further. And additionally, planning also does send notifications for public hearings and meetings, and we confirm that that was sent as well to the person of interest.
Thank you. And then I'll.
Sure, if you can show the screen. So this is the area roughly where the 10 acres was proposed for a fire station. I think the question you asked was, one, would it require a stream crossing? Yes. And two, why would we think that's a good area for a fire station? Well, in our original development plan, which doesn't look anything like the one in front of you tonight, this whole section west of Kemp Road showed a stream crossing and was for residential development. We had already decided to proffer this section as a donation to the city for park, which leaves this section over here, which is only accessible if you cross this stream or if the property west or south of it develops. And so from our point of view, we were willing to give it to the city to address an identified need in the SEDFA policies for fire station. I guess I would say in our mind, a free 10 acres is a free 10 acres. And, you know, one way or another, it can be developed. You might need a stream crossing, or you could access this property when the properties to the west or south are developed. But, you know, the information that we have gotten from the planning department as late as, I'd say, Friday, you know, the future growth area identifies areas that additional infrastructure is needed to support development. This particular area does have additional infrastructure needs, but they are and have been planned for. The future Fire Station 21 is planned for this area. The fire department will request and have funded in the CIP a new fire station on Kemp Road when it's needed. In addition, there are multiple ways to provide fire service to a site, including the hub and spoke model, fire station that sends a truck out, the point-to-point model where trucks are positioned and moved based on need and not returned to a fire station, and interlocal agreements with surrounding jurisdictions. Any and all of these service provisions may be used to meet fire service demand. So I'm not sure so my understanding is when we filed in 2020, there was no future growth area plan for this section. It wasn't until about a year later when the SEDFA policies were being drafted that the applicant was made aware of that area was then being considered for a future growth area. And I mean, I might be wrong, but my understanding is those policies still are in draft form. So the draft policy that this is a future growth area is something we have tried to take into consideration along with all these other draft policies that are out there. There is one thing we cannot change about this project, its location. But there are myriad reasons why this is the most logical development east of Kemp Road. And again, we've tried to address and have addressed pretty much everything that has been asked of us. We've tried also to address the fire station issue, and the site didn't work out. So, yeah, and I will say we're willing to, as a commitment on this zoning, not to apply for a building permit until a building permit has been applied for Fire Station 21. We don't have any interest in building this if there isn't adequate fire safety. We've expressed this before. We're willing to make that commitment if that would satisfy you. But, you know, this is a good project.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. I just want to highlight that this is the point of view of the developer, and I think as a council and as a city, we need to figure out where we stand in regards to protecting our sensitive areas like the headways and anything that's going to essentially kill off all of the wildlife in these types of areas as we're continuing to flood the waters with that increased tomato soup and all of the other, concerns that have been raised around water, air, and I would say that even food. This is becoming an increasingly problematic situation where we're allowing developers to lead us in this, and I hear our attorney speaking about this development site, and he's still ready to move forward, and we as a council are the only stoppage in that. And so in the previous situation with the annexation, where we're in the headways, there's nothing legally binding that would prevent us from not moving forward with that. But if we do as a council, we do that of our own will. And I want to say that I want to thank all of our speakers this evening, including the developer, and making sure that we're very clear on how this tension is still rising, because it's not going to go away. I want to say that affordable housing is not at the expense of clean water, clean air, or land. And we've created this tension in this city because we feel like it's progressive to do affordable housing everywhere and anywhere for an extent, and it's not working. It's harming folks who live in the county at this point. It is eventually going to harm us all. We have to figure out how we can dial this back down and come up with a plan that's not just addressing the infrastructure, but also addressing how we're doing status quo work and continuing to create this harm. I am like completely frustrated because we haven't found solutions that are going to be even larger than just the city of Durham. I understand that, we're annexing the county. There are other cities in this state doing the same thing. There are other states who are doing the same thing. And at the end of the day, it's us and it's the children that come after us that are going to be impacted. We're not doing ourselves any favors by continuing to press developers to find any piece of property and find a way, circumvent any rule to just come up with a way to develop. And I just continue to see that, and it's frustrating. I do want to really thank the News Riverkeeper for being here this evening. It's really inspiring. I said I was going to be quiet. I wasn't going to say anything. I was just going to leave it alone, but I can't. And so I just want to say over and over again, I thank you all. You all have all inspired me to continue to keep speaking because this water issue is just the very tip of the concern that has been raised. And it's paining me that you have to go to the extent of bringing in fire, EMS, and police to even bring the attention in so that my colleagues will see the issue. And I don't know what else to say, but I'm here with you. I want to continue to have this conversation and figure out what the solution looks like. I know the folks in the county have been reaching out trying to figure out what the solution looks like, and I think we'll get there. We're not there yet. I know that my colleagues are interested in that. They want to have a clear solution, but it's not quite clear just yet. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you. I want to thank the developer. This is an excellent project. I know that you all worked very, very hard to meet a lot of the requests and demands of the community. It's not just your project. If we say yes to this in an area that has been mapped, and it is just advice, you're correct, it's draft policies, but it will create a domino effect into an area that we are not ready to develop. For those who were on council, you all will remember this, but the getting to the CEDFA, guidelines, which fine, they're draft, but getting there took a year for staff to get there. And it started because there was if I'm not mistaken, there was a rezoning that got continued off Olive Branch Road. It's one of the big ones. And we got it continued, and I was originally a no, and then I flipped to yes, and former Mayor Schul did the opposite. And it passed, I think, a 4-3 vote. And there were a few other ones around there. And it created a lot of consternation on council because they were some of the first ones, 2019, 2018. And so we asked staff, we asked them to do an analysis. We asked them to give us some good options. We were all, I think, in a pretty, these decisions are hard. And at the time, staff did a lot of due diligence. They did a lot of comparison to Wake County. And that was I had spent some time looking for that meeting because I couldn't quite remember when we had it. And I remember once I got that information, and even if they're draft policies, it did put me at ease. No, not everything is perfect. Obviously, residents are still concerned. Obviously, there are things that we still have to work out. But it made me feel that at least within a, quite frankly, crappy situation, we're often put between a rock and a hard place, and I understand Councilmember Freeman's frustration, but a lot of that is just capitalism. A lot of the frustrations that we're feeling is because we live in a system that commodifies housing, that doesn't declare housing as a human right, that makes it, people are interested. In fact, there are two folks who are opponents who are real estate agents who've made a lot of money off of really, really hot market in Durham. And so all of us are feeling those frustrations. A lot of the issues that we're feeling, we really need support at the state and the federal government level to help us. These folks who are coming in as investment firms and really starting to flip property, that's something that's way beyond our control. That has to get dictated at the federal level. So I completely understand our residents' frustration. We live it every day. We live the limit of our power in these seats on a regular basis. But those policies were critical, at least for me as a council member, to understand, yes, there's a map. Is it perfect? No. Most of governance is not perfect. And we are making the right decisions as far as I'm concerned, because if we look right over on the Wake County line, the development is still happening. It's just on septic, and many of you are on septic, and you can imagine the limitations of being on well water and septic. I grew up on a well. I know exactly what the limitations are of well water. And it didn't stop what we thought we were going to stop. The houses are just bigger. They're in the county. They're not part of the water system of Raleigh, which is more controlled, better oversight, et cetera. And so it was based off those policies that I knew that I could at least do a better job than I was doing. And so if I'm going to actually accept those policies, if I'm going to accept what staff really worked hard on, I really need to look at that growth boundary. And that's line, it's Kemp Road. And if I'm not mistaken, the developers knew that that was happening at the time that that was communicated. They had every opportunity to wait if they wanted to. And that was a decision that they decided not to, and that's great. That's totally part of the process. But I'll be voting no. And anything coming forward that is on that line, I will be voting no on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Williams.
Could I ask staff a question real quick? Just for clarification, in some of our past meetings. So if there is fire needed, will they be able to respond in this area?
I'm actually going to defer. We have the fire chief here, Fire Chief Zoldos.
Thank you. I'm headed somewhere with this.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Bob Zoldos, your city fire chief. So the question is, can we respond? Right now, it's not within the city limits, but we would certainly respond as part of a mutual aid response. We've looked at the response times to the area just using basic maps. Obviously, we have no data on that because it's not part of our jurisdiction. But it's right now, Station 8 can respond to, let me pull up the distances if that's what you're looking for. Excuse me 1 second. Station 8 can reach 98 and Southview Road in 5 minutes, and they can travel down Kemp all the way to Virgil Road in about 5 minutes. Station 17 is 4 minutes from 1115 Olive Branch Road, which is currently where a lot of the blasting occurs, to give you a couple of locations.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's it. So where I'm headed with this is, and I wanted to address a couple of things here. First of all, you have developers, you have landowners, you have attorneys. And I think that we've allowed ourselves to minimize this conversation to just one commodity. And I think that's problematic because it perpetuates a narrative. The other thing is, to somewhat of the recent news story as well as the comments tonight, we have cross-utilization in our response methods. So it's either going to be EMS, it's going to be the police, it's going to be the fire department, but they all respond. So we may be short on one end, but there's going to be other resources that will respond. Two, I think that we keep moving the goalposts. This is a good project. And the things that have been addressed were the complaints that were before. And they were addressed, but there are some things that I don't think that can be addressed. And those are some of the environmental concerns regarding wildlife. That's just reality. The other side of that is, I grew up around a lot of deer. I grew up in Halifax County, Scotland Neck, and Hobgood, North Carolina. But in this case, if I was having to choose between, and I don't mean to send it in any insensitive way, but we have a housing crisis. And if I have to choose between a deer and a person, then that's what I'm going to do. We have a lot of issues out there, but one thing we can't control is we can't control how many people are moving to this area. It's going to hurt one way or the other. And that is something that we have to mitigate as best as we can, and as best as we can within our jurisdiction. There is a matter that I keep hearing. We want affordable housing, but we have every issue with building housing. And that is quite nuanced. And that is something that I think that's the pain point where we have to address. It's almost like me saying, I'm vegan, I don't want to hurt animals because of the climate, but I'm okay with the plane flying the product to me to eat. We have to deal with these nuanced situations at this level, and it is really hard. So if anyone thinks that we don't care, I've said this before, you're wrong. And this is why I've also called on us to meet with the planning department, the planning commission, because right now there is no metric of objectivity. It's opinionated. You know, and as much as I can, I've definitely followed objectivity on this as much as possible. That's why I asked those clarifying questions. So if staff tells me we can handle it, then we can. If they say we can't, then we can't. Staff also drew this line and said it's not recommended. Now, I don't know whether we can enforce you all to not build until such and such happens. I don't know that. But I try to make my decisions as objective as possible. I wanted to say all of this to say I appreciate what has been done on this project. I think it's one of the best set of proffers that we've seen in a long time, probably one of the best that I've seen. And yet, it's still not going to please folks. It's just not. And that's the reality of it. So I'm going to go with what staff is telling us because that's been my practice. My practice has been follow the objective resources. But I wanted to say to my friends here, I love you all so much. I get everything you're saying, I really do. But one thing we cannot control is there's going to be folks that is going to need a roof over their heads. And we're going to have to find out where we're going to put those things. And one thing we define very well is what we are against in the city and not what we're for. And that goes for us up here too. So I hope that we can find a way forward. I hope that we can find a plan. But I'm so sick and tired of only being against and no dang on plan forward. And I'm so frustrated with that. And it's so easy for someone to disparage someone's character or why we're sitting in this seat. The audacity. It's so easy to be in a house, a beautiful home, and be against someone else having theirs. And that is why I'm frustrated. And that is why this is also so difficult. So I'll follow staff's recommendation on it, but I'm sick of the mess.
Thank you, Council Member. Colleagues, thank you so much. I'll just make a couple of comments and perhaps a question for the applicant. Durham is the 4th largest city in the state of North Carolina. It is the 75th largest city in the United States of America. It is a city that is growing. The buck stops here, and staff can make recommendations and proposals, but I will never cede my leadership responsibility to the staff. Any proposals that the staff brings forward are because we asked them to. And by the way, when staff brings back numbers for our proposals that we don't like, we're not so happy. When staff brings back numbers for our proposals that we do like, we're happy. So on any given day, staff supremacy will ebb and flow. Watch the tapes from previous meetings. I want to speak to a characterization very directly because I think there are certain things that just aren't helpful for the debate. To suggest that anyone up here, all of my colleagues, they're all people of character, of great capability and integrity. Even when we disagree on the points, they are people of character and integrity. Anyone that suggests that we would jump up and down for developers or that we're in the pocket of developers, how about I say that preserve rural Durham are a bunch of white folk that are afraid of urbanization? Is that fair? Does that help the debate? Because for some people, preserve rural Durham, the rural lifestyle, the townhome lifestyle are code words. That's how some people hear them. Because if you're preserving one thing, that means you can't have another by definition, correct? So I want to be very careful about some of the words and phraseology we use. Growth hits people very differently in the city. For some people, they lose their trees. In the inner city, they lose their homes. Because the people with more money who are moving here, they're whiter, they're wealthier, they're younger, who can't find a place to live out, they bring their significant spending power to the inner city, and you read about it all the time, and they price folk out. So some of us lose trees and deers, and some of us lose our home. We lose our address. We head to Mebane. We head to Burlington. So I don't think it's very helpful for the debate to attack character or question motive. I don't question y'all's character. I know many of you. I love many of you. I don't question character. We are managing the growth of an American city that is one of the hottest, most desirable places to live in our country. And there are no easy answers. Next thing I want to say is, and you know, with due respect, I can't make decisions based upon what will happen and take people's money. We can't take a developer's money based upon a set of rules, expectations, and standards, and then while they're in process, say, well, you know, we got some things coming down the pipe, so whatever. That's not fair. That's a fairness question. I wouldn't want to be dealt with like that by some company. I wouldn't, you know, if it signed a contract under certain terms. So I would just caution my colleagues that the trying to legislate and trying to make decisions in anticipation of something that's coming down the pipe, when we've already taken folks' money on the front end under another set of rules, puts us on a slippery slope and in a dangerous situation as a fiduciary of the city. I won't do that. I want to be able to look people in the eye and deal with them with integrity and keep my word. And if we know we're going to change the rules, don't take their money. That's not right. It's inappropriate. With respect to the comments about fire, and some comments I made were alluded to by earlier speakers. In our homes, I try not to let groceries run out before I replenish them. If I see eggs are low, milk are low, I try and get them before I run all the way out. We don't govern our city by going right to the wall and then building more stuff. If we did that, people need to be fired. The comment I responded to was a statement, and I said it, go back and watch the tape, go back and watch the meeting, a statement that I had never, ever seen before from our staff. And that is, they made a determination that we had mathematically hit a hard wall, that we had exhausted our capability based upon a previous decision. I had never seen anything like that before, and it turns out it was errant. It wasn't true. Our fire chief is a man of integrity. He's one of the most honest, bravest men I know. He's not going to stand up here and lie. The characterization that this city that has won awards for its management got to a point where we ran out of eggs and milk, totally, and now we can't function anymore. It's not true. We're one of the best run cities in America. We win awards for it all the time. That's not, by definition, when we approve an annexation, we are already building in the fact that we've got to add more resources down the road. That's why we do it. And by the way, the reason why there are voluntary annexations is because we build state-of-the-art water facilities. Why don't you go ask your county commissioners to build facilities that you can plug into instead of wells? And just ask them. It's within their purview. They have a tax base. Ask them. We're a growing city, and there are no easy answers, but what I will not do is dissemble. I will not take people's money under one set of rules and then change them. I will not have my character questioned as to me jumping up for developers. Google me. That is not my makeup. Ask about me. I will not suggest or appeal to the worst angels of our nature by suggesting, we've seen this movie before. This is really about folk who don't want those urban types moving out there. I will not participate in that either. I take at face value that people are participating in this debate with integrity, who love our city, who love their neighbors, and are struggling with what growth looks like for one of the most desirable places to live in our country. Everything we've asked for and that we're anticipating in our amendments, we are starting to see developers proactively do it. This is a good project. And to be honest with you, I struggled with this vote because the line that my colleagues have alluded to resonated with me as well. But there's a line, and there's a sterling brand new lift station that's not at capacity yet either. Does anyone really think that we're not going to build in that area at some point with that lift station sitting right there? Were we that inept that we built this state-of-the-art lift station in anticipation of development in that area, and we're not going to use it? Would you taxpayers put up with that, with us not exhausting the technology that we spent so much of your money on? So it's difficult, but I am not going to pretend that I'm bound by what the staff tells me. We are not bound. The buck stops with us. They are in draft form. And some of the stuff is good and it's needed, but it is not yet. And I will not tether my vote or govern myself based upon what is down the pipe, what has not been codified, what does not have the force of law, and take people's money. I wasn't raised like that. So moving forward, I will look for, I'm the chairman of the JCCPC. I'm looking for these text amendments to come forward. I'm excited about them. Y'all have changed the debate. We are moving forward at a quicker clip because of your agitation, because of your protestation, because of your work, because of your organization. As an organizer, I appreciate it. But we also have to realize, me as a fiduciary of the city, that I believe that I'll be exposing our city by behaving as if something is when it is not. That doesn't mean I'm in the developer's pocket. That doesn't mean that you know, we're not operating with integrity or character. Every day, we bring our best selves. Every person up here, I believe, brings their best selves to determining how we can govern this growing city. And there are no easy answers. But what I do know, and I will stand by this, respectfully, some of us are concerned about losing our trees and looking out our window and seeing townhomes. Others of us are concerned about packing up a U-Haul truck and leaving Durham altogether. And that is not to pit one against the other. It is not. But what it is when you want to start raising who's jumping up and down for developers, is that there's a wide range of experiences, and people are experiencing growth differently in our city. And they're my constituents too. They count just as much. They may not have time to come to meetings. They may not have listservs. They may not be able to hire scientists, but they matter too. And whatever decision to make, when we don't approve something, it doesn't just go away. Something's going to go there by right. Every decision, even our non-decisions, are decisions. Everything has an impact. What we don't approve over here, people with money will find somewhere else. Usually areas that are less organized, with folk that are less educated, less capable to fight back. And we've seen the news stories all the time about that. So I really appreciate the debate and the discussion. I don't think it's helpful to question character or personal motives. I think all of us in this room are acting in integrity, facing some incredibly challenging decisions. And if we weren't so hot, we wouldn't be dealing with this. If Durham were not so desirable, this wouldn't be a problem. But we are, and it is. I'm supporting this project because, as it's been said, it's a good project. It's doing in anticipation of things that haven't even been passed yet. They're doing some of those things. We cannot issue a moratorium on development. We can't do it. I don't care what anybody says, we can't do it. So I'm supporting the project, as I said, because it's a good project. I appreciate, and as I said, and I'll put a fine point here, I did struggle because of that line, but that line is a proposed draft, and we don't cede to staff our decision-making capability. The buck stops here and with us. Our fire department has not hit a wall. We will dispatch, if life and limb and property are in peril, we will dispatch, we will deploy, we will come. And if we have reached a point where our city is being governed in a way where we wait till we run out of eggs to buy more eggs, somebody needs to clean up their resume. That is not the way the city is run. It's just not. We're one of the best run cities in the country. And we're also one of the fastest growing cities in the country. This is a good project. I'll be supporting it. Thank you, everyone, for that. With that, I'll entertain a motion, number one, to adopt an ordinance annexing Kemp Road residential into the city of Durham, effective March 31st, 2023, and to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with Bethesda Association, LLC.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Williams and a second from Councilmember Johnson. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Madam Clerk, please close the vote and report out.
The motion failed 4-2 with Council Members Freeman, Holsey-Hyman, Johnson, and Caballero voting no.
Thank you very much. Madam Attorney, do we need to take the rest of the votes since the first one? Brush me up on protocol, please.
Well, you're going
The
to at least have to
consistency.
do number 4.
Okay. Should we go through the others for form?
They don't need to do the consistency statement, they're making the decision.
If the first motion fails, there is no jurisdiction for the remainder.
There's no jurisdiction.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that, so do we need to do the consistent? No, there's no.
No, because there's no zoning.
Got you. All right. Thank you so much, colleagues, and thank you, all of you, for hanging in there with us. I know it's been a rather long night, but I think a productive night and a good night. Thank you so much for your work. With that said, no other matters coming before the council. It is 10:18 p.m. on January 17th. Madam Clerk, the gavel is down at 10:19. Have a good night. God bless Durham.
See you today.
Craig.
Calling Craig, other.